It doesn't take me long to realize where I ended up after going through the gate. And that realization leaves me rather annoyed. Why couldn't Black have sent me to the southwestern continent, where the gate to Demon Isle is located? Did he really have to send me here of all places? I can't help but feel that the man did this on purpose as I charge through the snow in my quadrupedal beast form towards the nearest city. Just the mere fact that there's snow here means that I'm on the northeastern continent. The continent commonly known as the continent of the dead. Strictly because the most common demons who live here are undead, and the others are arachnid-type demons of the envy sin. Some of the greed sin too. So basically a continent full of undead and thieves. But more importantly, a lot of my blood magic doesn't work on undead who don't have any blood. At least, my blood magic involved with draining or messing with their blood. My blood plagues won't work either. A major pain. I grimace as I continue running, only to eventually slow down to a stop when I get close to a city. Then I immediately transform back into my lycanth form and don a cloak to cover my appearance before making my way through the rest of the snowy forest around me to enter what looks to be a snowy plains. One with a large city smack dab in the middle of it. The city is built in a much different style from the cities I saw back on the southwestern continent, with a 6-meter-tall wall surrounding the entire thing made out of stone blocks with a shiny blue light coating it. Likely some sort of magic to add additional protection to the wall and, judging by the lack of snow on the wall, keep it clean. Meanwhile, the front gate has 2 undead standing guard, each wearing full body armor that honestly reminds me a bit of the armor I've seen Vikings wear in video games. Some sort of extremely old culture from Earth, I believe. Their helmets even have those odd horns on them. But because their armor is so thick, I can't really see much of them beyond their humanoid shape and their pitch black eyes. A common trait for undead. So I go ahead and identify them. Bjorn Eriksson Sea Draugr Sea Level 561. Ingrid Freya Sea Draugr Sea Level 580. Class 4 guards? Probably means there's a noble in this city. I should be careful not to let them catch me. Which means not letting them see under my hood. Although, at the very least, from what Gramps has told me, the continent of the dead is a lot less strict in terms of their cities. They kinda just let anyone in without asking questions as long as they pay the fee. The cities are literally just pots of crime waiting to boil over, with the noble in charge of each region claiming some of the spoils from the victor in each bout. It's to the point that crime in some of these cities, especially the ones on the eastern side of the continent belonging to the Arachne, isn't even really crime. It's perfectly normal to just go and steal someone's things right out from under their nose. If they didn't catch the criminal, then it didn't happen. The stolen item belongs to the thief now. Should help me stay hidden here at least. I should probably keep a close eye on everyone around me though. Good thing I use spatial pockets. They can't exactly pickpocket those. Not unless they want Leonidas's anti-thief enchantment to snap at them. It won't exactly do much damage, but it'll hurt and expose their crime so that they will be caught in the act. I continue walking through the plains until I reach the line at the gate, briefly reaching into my spatial pocket underneath my cloak to check on my current money situation. Then I remember that I still have all of the coins Gramps gave me when I first set off away from the Bloody Duchy. An entire fortune's worth that I never really ended up spending due to my stay with the Kitsune. Nice. Gramps never cared about getting it back, so I never gave it back. Although it's more like I forgot about it, but whatever. Not like he needs money. He's the Demon King. If he wants something, he can just order someone to give it to him and they won't be able to say no. Literally. Anyways, I quickly spot several pickpockets amongst the line, stealing from other people in the line. But no one else says a word when they try to steal from someone and succeed. They only step out of the way calmly when they're caught and either have all of their own belongings stolen or they're killed and tossed out of the line by the one they were stealing from. A rather brutal scene, but now that I pay attention, most of the demons in this line, including the undead, are all either greed or envy demons. Not a very good combination. My hand whips around to grab at a forearm reaching for my waist. And before I can even turn around to look at whoever it belongs to, I hear cracking sounds coming from their arm from where I grabbed them. Oops. Snapped their bone. When I get a glimpse of the thief in question, I find it to be another draugr, just like the guards. But unlike the guards, this one is only a class 3. Which makes me wonder why on earth they thought it would be a good idea to target me. They should have been able to identify me and see my level, even if White did redact my name again. Wait. I blink in surprise. Did the cover black and purple put over me also block identifications for my level? That would be cool. Probably possible, considering that it's the highest level stealth and divination guardians in existence. Unlike White, who uses null magic, those two are practically made for hiding an identify result. Not bad. If that's the case. Anyways, the thief whose arm is still in my grasp, tries to break free with a look of both anger and greed on their face without a trace of fear. At least, until I pull them slightly closer and grab them by the neck, raising them into the air before snapping their neck and tossing them out of the line. But their look of fear only lasts a second. There's no use pitying or taking it easy on the demons in this continent. They would all just as soon betray me and stab me in the back right after sparing them as they would eat breakfast that morning. The one thing Gramps ingrained in me the most about this continent is to trust no one and never give anyone mercy here. I focus on the line again, finding that not a single one of the demons around us seemed to be paying me any mind despite me having killed a draugr. Such a different place from Earth. Just like with the guards stationed at the first city I visited on the southwestern continent, the guards here try to charge me extra for the tax to enter the city. And also just like those guards, I ignore them and pay them the correct amount instead before stepping inside. Unlike those guards though, the guard in charge of my line tries to stop me while stating, "That is not the right amount." If you try to dash he stops, his mouth dropping open when I just grab his reaching arm and twist it, snapping the thing before I continue walking. And I don't hear anything from him again after that. Although I do hear absolute silence from everyone in the line when there was previously some chatter. An interesting fact I've learned about undead through my time going through that line and killing a few of them. They don't feel pain. Although while my pain is reduced significantly through my magic with pain diffusion, they seem to just have some sort of biological factor making them not feel pain. Probably has something to do with them being sort of dead. I mean, they don't have any blood after all, so not having nerves makes sense too. It's rather hard to tell though, strictly because of all the armor the undead here seem to be wearing. Something I still can't figure out the reason for. I can't help but wonder what the other demons is seeing when they identify you, Tar mutters, and I nod my head in agreement. It's like they all seem to think you're a much lower level than you really are or something. Yeah. I was targeted a lot despite killing quite a few thieves. And they all seem to be absolutely shocked, both by me catching them and me killing them. Even some of the people in the line seem to have been surprised by my killing them. Makes me wonder if black and purple somehow made my level look lower than it really is. That could get annoying if it's the case, Tar says, but I just shake my head as I continue walking inside of the city through the gate with the slack-jawed guard still staring after me. No, it could be beneficial for me. Maybe. Would mean the demons won't just run away if we get into a fight, and I won't attract as much attention as I would if I were a higher level. Although killing them with ease at a lower level would attract attention. It's a good thing that there's no such thing as an item that can conceal someone's level, so no one would assume that I have something doing so. They'd probably just assume that I am extremely powerful for my level. And likely that I'm the daughter of a noble, considering my redacted name and species. Well, regardless of what happens, I'm just here to look around and figure out where I am. So with that in mind, I lightly pull my cowl down a bit further and continue walking into the city. The gate. A few moments ago. Bjorn looks at the next person in line, a draugr just like him, but unlike him, the draugr is only a class 3. So when the draugr steps up to him, Bjorn declares, 10 coppers or work off your debt. The draugr instantly brings out 10 coppers, paying right away instead of taking the suicidal choice of working off the debt of trying to enter the city. Because while it would only normally be 5 coppers 10 in this case, the Viscount Lord of the city doesn't like letting poor folks inside and is very willing to work them to death even for a measly 5 coppers. Something everyone trying to enter the city should know if they aren't. Suicidal. After handing over the 10 coppers, Bjorn lets the Draugr pass by unharmed before he narrows his gaze on the next newcomer to arrive at the front of the line. Someone wearing a cloak covering their entire body, making it impossible to tell anything about them other than that their figure is female. But hiding one's appearance is a common practice in the northeastern continent, so that doesn't make him suspicious in the slightest. What does make him suspicious is the sight of her identify. Redacted, level 310 *. The hell? That's not something I see every day. Bjorn watches the woman approach for a few seconds before deciding that the redaction on her name and species is most likely due to her cloak, if he had to guess. And since he's never seen her before, he decides to charge her his newbie rate. 10 coppers or work off your debt, Bjorn says, not changing anything up in his usual manner of speech for the woman. But to his surprise, she just stuffs 5 coppers into his hand and walks away, making a mild wave of anger fill him. So he reaches for her arm while saying, "That is not the right amount." If you try to dash, but he stops when the woman simply grabs his arm faster than he can react and twists it, snapping his arm to the point that his bone ends up sticking out of his armor. And that act alone leaves him staring dumbfounded at his arm as the woman walks away. Several seconds pass before he snaps out of his stupor and looks up at the slowly departing woman. What just happened? He stares almost till she leaves his sight into the throng of people walking through the interior of the city. That is, until his fellow guard shouts, "Snap out of it and do your job." So he turns back to the line and says, "Next." But he can't get his mind off of the woman, despite returning to work. Just who is she? What is she? A metaphorical shiver runs down his spine as the thought that she might have been the daughter of a noble comes to mind. And he had tried to cheat her. It doesn't take me long to find the information I'm looking for. Even with the magical items, I've gotta get used to using that term again since we're on Tartarus covering some buildings with magic to enchant them against eavesdropping. Good thing my hearing is just that good. Humble, aren't we? Tar comments, sounding amused. If it's true, then yeah. He snorts as I stand up from my place sitting at the edge of a building's roof. I glance at my arm where my terminal was before coming here, slightly lamenting the fact that it had somehow vanished right as I was being pushed through the gate. Although somehow is a relative term, considering it was obvious what happened. Black most likely took it. Then again, that's better than him just pushing me through the gate with it on, because I would rather not have had to deal with an exploding device strapped to my arm just due to coming to Tartarus. I'm guessing he probably searched me with magic for any other pieces of technology or stuff that would blow up on Tartarus before he sent me through. Or at least he better have. Otherwise I would have been pretty pissed off at him. Well, if I had anything on me, that is. I don't really carry much stuff around me most of the time. Just my clothes obviously, and my terminal. There's not really much else that I need. Aside from my identification papers and other stuff like that, but those are stored safely in my spatial pocket, and even if they weren't, paper exists on Tartarus too. So it's not a problem. Still would be nice if he didn't just push me here like that. I sigh at that thought before turning my head towards the lord of this domain's manor. Or rather, I'm not really sure how to describe the guy. Just that I don't want to meet him. From what I've heard, he encourages stealing in the city, treats people who can't pay the entry fee after entering the line as slaves as if the mere action of entering the line itself was part of the fee, and seems to only want wealthy people in the city for any length of time. I've also heard he likes to toy with people. And that he's an undead foxkin, a lesser species of a kitsune, similar to the arachne being a lesser species to the arachne. Except that it's an undead version of a foxkin. Unlike the arachne, however, foxkin do share the same sin as the kitsune. Meaning their sin is that of greed, and it manifests in a similar way to the kitsune. They like their playthings and money. Meaning I'm avoiding him at all costs. The maids and clan members at the kitsune's palace were bad enough already, I don't need an undead one trying to lay claim on me as well. The noble aside though, I can't help but sigh at the fact that I'm currently in the valley between the two mountain ranges of the northeastern continent of the dead. Right in between the spider's burrow and the caverns of death. Although I purse my lips as a thought comes to mind. But then I shake my head, deciding it's not worth it. Going to see the Reaper could very well lead to me ending up captured instead of him helping me again. You wanted to see if he could bring you to the Devourer to ask for your uncle's emotions back? Tar asks, and I nod my head with a frown on my face. Yeah, I know Amelia really wants that. And if I can make it so that he will actually regret his actions and maybe even care for Arya, then I might be able to get her out of that old man's house. I begin jumping across the rooftops across the city until I get to the edge of it and jump back down to the ground. Because I know trying to jump over the wall would just set off the alarm enchantments inside of it. Better to just go through the gate again. As I walk into the city street and towards the gate though, I ponder over the nuisance that is traversing the ocean to get to the southwestern continent. Because that will be a major pain. Are you planning on going through the Demon King's central continent or through the southeastern continent? Tar asks, making me grimace at the thought of ever going to the southeastern continent. I think I should go through the outskirts of the central continent, because the southeastern continent is ruled by the Mind-Eaters, and just because they're asleep doesn't mean they don't know exactly what's going on throughout their continent. So I'll probably be found right away by the Devourer if I go there. They are mental magic users after all, and I'd stand no chance against some of the peak class 4 demons there just because of that stupid mental magic weakness. And I can't go to the Bloody Duchy, for obvious reasons. Your father, Tar states the obvious. Yep. That, and I don't know how I would even get up to the floating islands in the first place. I don't think I can jump that high, and they have enchantments covering every inch of the islands that would detect me the moment I tried. So the central continent it is. Meaning I'll be passing through the battlefield of blood and ruin again. And probably seeing Gramps along the way, but considering how he is, I'd be shocked if he didn't come by to pay me a visit no matter where I go. At least you'll get in some training at the battlefield, Tar points out, making me smile slightly at that. Earth's front lines were the best place for me to train against low-level Class IVs and Class 3s of all level, but the battlefield of blood and ruin is still the best place to go for training against high-level Class IVs and Class Versus in general. As long as I'm careful not to let a Class V annihilate me right off the bat. I continue through the city until I make it to the gate, pay my toll, and leave, heading to the southwest in the hopes that I make it to the coast without trouble. Which probably won't happen. Kitsugami Shiro slowly smirks as he watches the girl stepping outside of his city from the skies, his 7 tails fluttering in the wind behind him, the fur on the tails looking a pale white with hints of gray. Meanwhile each tail is tipped with pure black as bolts of death magic dance along the tips between the tails. But as he continues to watch the girl, the smirk on his face slowly turns manic and light chuckles begin to bubble up from him. That's the one. I will have her no matter what. He slowly begins to laugh louder and louder, only to sometimes drop in volume and grow again for no reason. Please show me what His Majesty will do. I want to see it. With my own eyes. Shiro knows perfectly well that going after the princess is suicide. But he doesn't care. In fact, he wants to know just how angry the Demon King will be at him for trying to take his precious princess. Mostly Shiro just wants to see despair on the lovely princess's face though. And if the Demon King doesn't manage to find the princess thanks to that wonderful stealth magic she has on her, Shiro knows very well how much that'll increase the fun. He continues laughing, making some of the demons down in the city who are able to hear him automatically begin heading towards the city gates in order to leave the city. Because no one wants to be around when the city lord, Viscount Kitsugami, is out and about. And Shiro is perfectly happy with that. Whatever causes the most chaos will always be perfect in my book. And capturing that pretty and adorable little princess? What better way to cause chaos? Shiro, an undead kitsune who has completely lost himself to his sin over the years without a care in the world, spreads his arms out and continues laughing into the sky, sending a shiver down the spines of the many demons in the city below. each of whom are all hoping against hope that the man decides to turn his insanity outwards, away from the city. Unfortunately for them, Shiro's gaze immediately snaps downwards, a look halfway between insanity and that of a mischievous kid about to play a prank as he stares at them without blinking. And he just continues staring without laughing anymore for an entire hour, simply waiting for the princess to get far away to give her a head start. Then he begins laughing again and shouts for all the city to hear, "Let's play a little game, everyone. A game I knew you'll all love." Shivers run down the spines of everyone listening, but even as he knows that, all it does is make Shiro's pitch black eyes flare with a black light, a very faint amber slit appearing in the middle of the black orbs for a split second before vanishing again. "How about you all capture the lovely little girl currently running southwest of here? She is wearing a black cloak that completely hides her appearance, and has a fully redacted identify result." Shiro sucks in a breath of air, simply breathing in the fear he feels the people of his city below feeling. And without a hint of shame or hesitation, he tilts his head, sticks his tongue out of his mouth, and adds, "And if you don't, then I'll slaughter the lot of you." Almost immediately, everyone in the city begins to leave, marching towards the southwest. But only the Class IVs manage to keep pace with the princess, and even they aren't able to gain any ground on catching up to her. Looks like they're too slow. Then he bursts out laughing again and starts flying around in circles. 1, 2, Shiro begins, locking his hands together behind his back by the fingers as he sways back and forth from side to side while hanging upside down. "Death comes for you." Then he flips around, orienting himself with his head towards the sky. 3, 4, he pauses again as a wide smile stretches across his face at the sight of all the demons speeding up slightly like their lives depended on it. Don't you want to see what happens when it comes? That's too bad." He rocks back and forth midair as he watches the army chase after the girl from high up in the sky, wondering just how long they'll be able to play with her before news of this gets back to the Demon King. But it doesn't take long for him to break out into chuckles at the thought again. The thought of seeing the Demon King massacring the entire city for targeting his granddaughter. "I love this." Shiro breaks out into hysterical laughter before slowly floating along in the direction that the princess is running. "I should let her reach the battlefield before I attack. It should give me some time to toy with her before His Majesty arrives to kill me." His laughter cuts off and he grins as if he had just won the lottery. "This is going to be so much fun. Maybe I can even kill the princess after toying with her? Just to see what he'd do." Shiro starts humming while flying through the air and occasionally muttering, 1, 2, death comes for you. So Tar comments as I sprint across the barren wastelands that are the northeastern continent with abandon. "You did say you wanted people to try attacking you. I swear that bastard knew that I was listening and was even enjoying it." "He seems to have lost himself to his sin," Tar adds, making me grimace at the thought. For a demon to lose themselves to their sin is a crime punishable by death should they not recover themselves within a month of losing themselves. Because after that they won't even care about the Demon King's authority. The most he can do is order them to sit still and do nothing, and that's only if he was there in person to deal with the individual in question. To lose themselves to their sin, they end up completely giving into their sin, letting it fully drive their actions as they either take a back seat or let it wipe out their consciousness entirely. And in this guy's case, he seems to have just taken a back seat to his sin as his hunger for chaos drives him forward. "Couldn't you ask your grandfather for help?" Tar asks, sounding concerned. But I just shake my head as I run. "Not possible. At least not until I reach the central continent." He mentioned before that while he could technically listen to everything on the planet with his sense of hearing, that isn't exactly pleasant, so he generally limits his hearing to just around his central continent while using his blood clones and magical senses for the rest of Tartarus. Meaning he won't hear me unless I cross the waters to the central continent. Especially since he can't sense me with black and purple shielding, so all he likely sees is a large swathe of land that is invisible to his senses slowly approaching him. Land that includes my pursuers. "That's bad," Tar mutters. "Very bad." "Yep. I continue running for my life for who knows how long until I finally reach the waters where a port city is nestled with various ships. But I quickly realize, based on the dust and the sounds of running I hear in the distance, that a ship won't be fast enough. Especially since I'm pretty sure the lunatic is starting to use his own magic to boost the pursuers. So I continue running in my quadrupedal beast form, uncaring of others seeing me as I jump straight into the frigid waters and begin swimming through it faster than any ship could likely go. And after several minutes of swimming, I throw a quick glance back to find not a single soul following me, making me let out a sigh of relief. Then I hear the lunatic cackling again, as if he were waiting for me to look back. A shiver runs down my spine when a large wave of black and purple miasma shoots outwards, covering everywhere as far as the eye can see a few kilometers in front of me. And my eyes widen in fear as the sight of the pursuing demons somehow being brought above the cloud of miasma, where they then run along its top. I still make it to the central continent with a few kilometers between me and the pursuing forces, but when I jump out of the water onto the red stone that makes up the continent's surface, I quickly find the lunatic floating right in front of me while hanging upside down and laughing. But he doesn't do anything, so I continue running. Kitsugami Shiro, Undead Kitsune, level 1381. Just identifying him sends another chill down my spine though, since until now, he's kept enough distance that all I've been able to do is hear him. He's almost a damned count. And I thought he was an undead foxkin, not a kitsune? This guy could literally kill me with the snap of his fingers. And I doubt he cares about Gramps killing him in return. Just in case though, I activate my crest to showcase who I am, hoping against hope that it stops some of the approaching demons. But all that happens is that a cloud of miasma forms in front of my chest, blocking my crest from view, just like how he blocked my voice earlier when I tried to shout at the demons chasing me, as the lunatic clicks his tongue and waves a single finger at me as if I were some child doing something I shouldn't. And that action alone makes the anger and pride within me boil to the surface. Being treated like a helpless child for him to play around with. I grit my teeth as I begin to hear those same voices from back on Earth entering my head. But I try a lot harder this time to fight against them now that I know exactly what they are. Fortunately, I managed to retain my sanity this time, only thanks to me trying as hard as possible to ignore the lunatic who is currently dancing in the air around me like a damned monkey. This guy is just asking for the Demon King to kill him and the entire city he's forced into this, Tar says, making me grit my teeth even harder as I run across the stone further into the central continent. How about we wait until after they've already roughed you up at least a bit till we let them find out about your little identity, my precious little puppy, the lunatic eventually says with a cackle, his voice somehow restricted to our area alone. Then I can see how they react to knowing they'll be killed by His Majesty. You really are insane. I exclaim as I run, but the man just shouts back with a laugh, I know. Thanks for the compliment. But when I try, the man just silences me in the same way he did before. No, 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 we can't have that, now can we? Shiro says with a playful smile on his face. Let's wait for the grand finale to bring him here. Are you kidding me? I continue running through the continent until I arrive at the battlefield of blood and ruin, and around the same time, the demons behind me all start catching up. But some of them seem to grow more hesitant when they see me entering the battlefield. At least, until the Viscount shouts with a sing-song voice, if anyone turns around, they die. So we all charge through the massive battlefield for nearly an hour until the lunatic finally seems to be satisfied with the chase and claps his hands, making a massive wall of miasma form in front of me and to the sides. And when I try to throw attacks at it, the wall simply eats the attacks without even struggling against them. Then I try to punch the wall, only for my hand to be devoured by it entirely, leaving me having to spend nearly an entire minute just regrowing my hand as I turn around to find all of the demons, a number consisting of hundreds of thousands of demons with the vast majority being undead, catching up to me at last. And the battlefield around us grows completely silent. As if Viscount somehow just silenced everything around us. His magic seems to be death magic, just like the ghouls, Tar points out, making me grit my teeth. So silencing an area and blocking senses is very much something he can do. Damn it. The demons all glare at me as if this whole thing was my fault, that the lunatic decided to force them into his little game. And it doesn't take long before some of them charge towards me, attacking after having lost themselves to their sins on the way here. But the majority continue watching, likely due to me being a blood Lycan, even if they don't recognize me as the princess. And attacking a blood Lycan is never a good idea. To the winner goes the spoils in this absolutely spectacular battle royally. The Viscount begins shouting as he spins in circles above us all, speaking as if she were some sort of MC for a game show. Then he stops, pointing one hand in my direction as he shouts, on one side, we have the lovely blood Lycan whose name shall remain unknown based on her own re-edacted choice. I scowl up at him, but he ignores my anger to instead indicate the other demons. And here we have 192,601 demons. All here to capture the lovely little blood Lycan pup. His calling me a pup only makes the demons glaring at me grow even more wary. Because if there's one thing ingrained in the demons, it's that you do not mess with a blood Lycan child. Buat, the Viscount says, stopping mid-air, with a grin on his face and one hand raised. How about we shake things up a bit? Wouldn't you like that? Someone actually whispers no amongst the demons, to my complete surprise. But I'm only able to hear them with extreme difficulty, even with my hearing pushed up quite a bit right now. The demon doesn't last long though, as the Viscount throws some sort of bolt of death magic in the direction of the sound, blasting dozens of demons around the one who had spoken and killing them all. Then he tilts his head. How about we make that 192,567 demons instead? What about you? Let's shake things up a bit. Okay, I honestly don't think I've ever seen someone as messed up as this guy before. Tar, please make sure I never lose myself to my sin. Ever. Of course, Tar says from the in-between. So to change things up, how about you all? The Viscount trails off as a vicious grin stretches across his face and he lowers his voice, kill the pup instead. Terror runs through the demons so much that I can literally smell it in some cases. Some rather stinky cases that have me lowering my sense of smell. Gross. Before any of the demons can say anything about his request, the Viscount lets out another laugh and waves his hands, spreading them both out to the sides while sending some sort of black and purple dust out all around us. And while the dust seems to ignore me, it immediately latches onto the other demons, making them let out roars of pain before their eyes start flashing with a black light. Maybe I should just tell you to do it instead, the Viscount then says as the demons all start turning violent yet empty-looking gazes towards me. As if they just had their consciousnesses wiped or something. So go kill the pup. Without a single ounce of hesitation this time, the demons, who I'm pretty sure were just cursed to become undead if they weren't already, and to have their minds either erased or controlled by the Viscount, all rush straight towards me in a berserk frenzy. Seriously? I grit my teeth as I jump back, trying to figure out what the hell I can do against an army of almost 200,000 demons. Especially since they're all undead, so my plagues won't work on them. Probably why he turned them into undead in the first place. No matter what I do, I can't figure out a way to survive this on my own, since if I manage to deal with the army, the Viscount won't just let me go. So the only way to survive is to wait for Gramps to show up. I know he'll show up sooner or later. The question is just how long it'll take for him to realize something's wrong. The unfortunate truth is that Gramps isn't always paying attention to the entire world or even his continent beyond checking out things that stand out. And all he's seen so far is most likely that I'm traveling across his continent. My only way to survive is to wait for updates to come to him from the cities we passed by about the situation. I grit my teeth even harder before letting out a low snarl, still in my quadrupedal beast form. So to survive, I must stall. I sprint forwards to meet with the incoming army. The battle proves to be harder than any other battle I've done before, since I can't use any of my blood magic skills that directly target the opponent's blood, leaving me significantly handicapped in this battle. But thanks to blood regeneration, I manage to hang on even as I slaughter thousands upon thousands of demons, taking who knows how many hits from them. Fortunately, my armor holds out and doesn't take more than a scratch from any demon beneath Class 4, with a level at least in the middle of Class 4. And those scratches it heals right away. The attacks end up doing more damage to me than my armor, not that they're doing much to me either. On the other hand, the attacks from the demons closer to the peak of class 4 deal a lot more damage to both me and my armor, making me occasionally repair my armor manually through the higher rarity version of repair meant for magical equipment. It helps that none of the demons are currently sane that are attacking me. Assuming they're even alive in the first place. So they aren't using any martial arts or any sort of strategy. They're just going at me like berserkers. Like a swarm of zombies. Quite possibly literally. It's hard to tell what they are now though, since their identify hasn't changed. I continue fighting for hours upon hours, the battle seemingly never ending, just like the lunatics cackling. And over time I begin to build up some levels, bringing me above level 900 finally. But I also find it a lot harder to last since I don't have my blood magic skills affecting their blood, making sanguine effect almost useless in this fight. A skill that has become a major part of my fighting style. And bloodthirst reached its unspecified cap on stacks long ago, making me no longer gaining any more mana from it. Gradually my advantage decreases, and I find myself panting in exhaustion, using one of my last mana potions that I'd brought along with me at Amelia's insistence. Something I'm very thankful for now. Scarlet, Tar mutters, sounding a little desperate but not saying more. I know. Their numbers have been reduced by around half by now, so I think it's time. Be careful, he says, more than a little worry in his voice now. But also confidence. Like he knows I'll pull through somehow. My pride flares as I glare up at the undead kitsune still laughing his ass off in the sky. Then I use Blood of Ruin, making the usual orbs and lines of blood appear all around the area, filling up the entire closed-off section that the undead kitsune made. But unsurprisingly, the undead kitsune just laughs even harder as some of the lines straight up break after coming into contact with him, proving that he's too powerful for me to touch even with Blood of Ruin. I grit my teeth at the sight, but I didn't expect it to do anything to him anyways. The other demons all around us though, they immediately begin dropping like flies to Blood of Ruin before it even finishes. And when it does finish, flooding the area with Blood of Ruin in a massive wave, almost every last remaining demon is turned to glowing red ash. I drop to my knees before pulling out another potion and downing it as well, only to cough out a mouthful of blood. You used too many potions, the annoying lunatic says in a sing-song voice, but I ignore him as I feel my mana restoring to about halfway full. Scarlet, Tar mutters, sounding even more worried now than before. I'm sorry. I know that if you use too many potions back to back it'll lead to some backlash on your body. But with him still here and Gramps not, I don't have much of a choice. Without caring about the blood I'm coughing out or the wave of system messages flashing at the back of my mind, I climb back to my feet, my quadrupedal transformation reversing out of nowhere, leaving me standing in my lycanth form again. Probably as part of my backlash. By now, my armor is in tatters, so I repair it once more, feeling a flash of pain from the use of mana while under backlash. But I ignore that too, while quickly finishing off the last of the demons attacking me. Then I turn all of my focus back on the lunatic, who is still laughing, not having stopped even once throughout the entire time. Which is why when he finally stops laughing and focuses all of his attention on me, dead eyes meeting mine in the process, I feel a major chill run down my spine. I think I've had enough fun watching, he says, his voice echoing eerily throughout the closed-off area, surrounded by walls of death magic. How about I join in on the fun now? Without warning, the man vanishes from his place, a massive wave of miasma filling the entire area and making my coughing fit grow even worse than it already was. Then I feel a flash of pain from my side, making me cry out. Something that hasn't happened in a long time, thanks to pain diffusion. But for some reason, the pain of this wound is so bad it's like I feel it deep down in my soul. Tar actually appears around me, making my eyes widen in fear for his life, only for him to fearfully mutter, "He's attacking your reality. Your soul." My eyes widen even more at that, but to my surprise, Tar suddenly vanishes and his voice leaves as well, leaving me all alone in the darkness of the miasma. 1, 2, the man's voice echoes through the darkness, following which I feel another flash of pain from my right arm near my elbow that has me crying out again while dropping to one knee. Death comes for you. Why, my dear little puppy, I just temporarily cut off the link between the two of you connecting your realities, he says, making my eyes widen in shock. This way your little pet can leave my soul barrier without you and find your reinforcements. His smirk turns into a smile. Eventually. Eventually? So he set Tar free to get Gramps, but only after delaying him a bit. I feel strange not hearing or even sensing Tar's presence at all. Like something important is missing. And it makes my already pained chest grow even more painful. But I grit my teeth and push myself to my feet, fighting the pain only for another flash of it to come from my leg, knocking it out from under me and putting me onto the ground on my side. Have you ever felt your reality being cut? Not just your body, but your reality itself, the lunatic starts speaking nonchalantly as I feel tears coming to my eyes. Oh, wait. You're feeling it right now. Should I bother to explain? He pauses for a second as I grit my teeth and try as hard as I can to push myself through to my feet, feeling the whispers of pride slowly beginning to echo in my mind again. Yeah, I think I will. Another flash of pain comes, but from my mouth this time as I let out a scream, suddenly feeling my tongue no longer in my mouth, making it impossible to speak. And it's not growing back like it normally would. So damage to the reality is a lot harder and slower to heal than damage to your body, he says, sounding like he's enjoying my pain. It'll heal, and probably within an hour or two considering your significant healing speed, but it won't heal right away like most of your wounds do. And it'll hurt far worse than anything you've felt before. Till now, that is, in feeling this. I grit my teeth and begin using the blood spilling into my mouth from my tongue to power my blood magic skills as I push blood sacrifice and crimson overdrive to their limits and jump to my feet, pushing aside all of my pain. Only to feel another flash of pain from my left calf, making me drop back down in an instant before I realize that he cut off part of my leg at a point halfway down my calf. My only break amongst the extreme agony I'm feeling is the sound of pain diffusion leveling up once, to level 27. Then time begins to pass as I feel my pain beginning to overwhelm my mind, to the point that it pushes down my pride. And over time, my only breaks from it are the sounds of pain diffusion once in a blue moon leveling until it reaches the max level, level 30. Then the pain suddenly vanishes entirely, making me suck in a gasp of air. Oh? You retained your senses? I hear the lunatic's voice as I quickly check the description of pain diffusion, finding it now saying that I can diffuse all 100% of the pain I feel. Something that makes me more than a little fearful for the future when I have to experience that pain some more, but at least it's gone for now and I can think. Very interesting. Would you mind letting me test something on you? I look down to find that my leg has regrown and my tongue as well. Meanwhile, the rest of me is just covered in scratches all over, as if he had stopped doing major attacks like that after I lost my senses. But how long have we been here for them to regrow already? Looking around, all I find is the same miasma from before. But then the lunatic waves his hand, making it clear slightly to show the sun above us. It was dusk the last time I saw the sun, right before he covered everything in miasma. I feel my pride coming back with a vengeance, the voices echoing in my mind. Kill him. Avenge your pride. Tear it apart. Restore your pride. I grimace at the voices but try as hard as I can to ignore them. You done regaining your bearings? The lunatic says, a smile on his face as he tilts his head slightly. Great. Then I can start with the next little test. My eyes widen in both anger and fear, but to my surprise, he doesn't do anything. Or rather, he makes a black and purple light shine all over me, but nothing happens. Now dance like a doll, he says, but still nothing happens. Then he sighs and mutters, looks like mind control skills really don't work on you. He tried to mind control me? Thank you Leonidas for blood domination, even if it's only the lower rarity version I can't even see yet. Your fae will probably make it past my barrier within an hour to find His Majesty, so I think you should try to stall for time, K, he says, making me scowl at him as I climb to my feet and raise my arms while transforming into my bipedal beast form. If you can keep me entertained until he gets here, then I'll let you live without a single scar. Then his eyes flare with a black light. But if not, then I'll enjoy your head as my last meal before your grandfather tears off my own. I grit my teeth and immediately activate all of the skills I have, surprisingly finding him susceptible to blood magic skills affecting his blood. Is it because he's an undead kitsune? That the kitsune blood is just that powerful? I'm not sure. Blood lichens can't become undead, and I don't have knowledge on the other clan demons in that area. I narrow my eyes before rushing forwards and attacking. Either way, I have to survive. Without batting an eye, the undead kitsune lets out a laugh as he literally swats away each and every one of my attacks, making the whispers of my sin of pride grow louder and louder. And each time it happens, I feel myself growing angrier and angrier. But unlike the last time this happened, I managed to narrow all of that rage down to just attacking him. I burn as much of my blood as I can, burn my own life energy along with the life energy I drain from him, drain my reserves of blood practically dry to the point that I even start draining all of the blood around us in the battlefield of blood and ruin to power my attacks. And yet, he still blocks all of my attacks with ease. No matter what I do, nothing manages to even scratch him. Not until I finally put in all of my strength, burning so much blood that an incredibly thick fog of red mist covers us with nothing but the lightning coursing through my body illuminating it as I take advantage of his most recent laughing fit to drive my head straight into his uncovered wrist, biting down with my transformed mouth. And to my surprise, my fangs actually sink in slightly, drawing naught but a little blood. Blood that tastes absolutely disgusting, likely due to belonging to an undead. But I still use it because I can sense the life energy filling the blood and absorb it all before spitting the disgusting blood back out in the undead kitsune's face as I draw my hands back and bring them down towards his head. Only for him to catch both of my hands with one of his own and lift me up into the air with a scowl on his face. "You just bit me," he states rather plainly, no emotion in his voice whatsoever. "You really just bit me." Then we stare at each other, him raising me to be just inches from his face, his pitch black eyes flaring once more to show the slit amber in the center as he narrows them to the point of a cat. And after several seconds, he breaks out into laughter again, moving me away from his face as I glare at him. "You actually hurt me," he exclaims, sounding happy and excited about this. Even as he throws me several dozen meters away, making me land while feeling my body completely lacking in blood due to my own burning of it, he continues speaking, "You are fun." His eyes widen with glee and he claps his hands while I struggle to climb back to my feet, hurriedly using the life energy I stole from him to recover my blood enough to do so. "You are so much more fun than I ever imagined." And right when I get back to my feet, I feel the air exploding out of my lungs as I'm sent flying from a fist hitting my stomach. All the way towards the miasma wall, the wall only barely stretching outwards when I get near so that it doesn't kill me. "Let's play some more," the lunatic shouts while appearing in front of me again and grabbing me by my hair to then send me flying again. Then he repeats this process over and over again, sending me flying all around the battlefield within the miasma barriers. But I just grit my teeth and deal with it, because there isn't anything I can do about it right now with my blood as low as it is. Aside from feeling my pride taking one hit after another, increasing the volume of the whispers in my head and the absolute anger filling me. "Kill him. Destrothe filthy lesser fox. Kill. I grit my teeth as the voices grow to the point that I can no longer hear the lunatic in whatever the hell he's saying. I can't hear anything except the voices. And that's saying something considering that I can't control the sensitivity of my ears right now and they're completely unrestricted. Although the miasma barrier is blocking me from hearing outside of it. The voices continue growing louder and louder to the point that I can no longer even hear my own thoughts. Meanwhile, the undead kitsune lunatic continues to throw me around like a rag doll, yanking me by my hair, an arm, a leg, or even just kicking me or flipping me up into the air. All while his mouth and body motions make him look like he's laughing. But I still can't hear him. All I can feel is the anger, the pride coursing through me. Tear it to shreds. Rip apart and give it no mercy. Show it the power of a blood leakin. Who knows how long passes by as he continues kicking me, and eventually I feel I can't even move at all from it. But thanks to pain diffusion, I still don't feel an ounce of pain. There's nothing but the voices. But pride. A loud roar echoes over the voices, but I can only barely hear it. What I see, however, is the sight of the very air wavering at the roar. The ground shaking. Red lightning crashing down from the skies. And the barriers of miasma dissipating. But it's too late. I finally lose it, my eyes flaring with a bright red light that has the undead kitsune pausing for a second before saying something. But I completely ignore whatever he's saying as I focus inwards, feeling a pull on me to do so by my instincts and the annoying dinging sounds echoing through my head somehow over the voices. I ignore the dinging and whatever messages or notifications it might contain that I feel guiding me despite my ignoring them as I focus inwards. Finding a strange ability manifesting to look into my body itself. Into my blood. And without hesitation, I pull on that sensation, finding my view immediately scattering everywhere. Kill the kitsune. Tar panics as he repeatedly slams into the barrier of solid miasma around him, uncaring that each time he does so, it wears away slightly at his avatar. Uncaring that it will take him months just to recover after this. Because all that's on his mind right now is the image of Scarlet's injured face in his vision as he slams himself into the wall with abandon, just like he's been doing for Oberon knows how long now. But out of nowhere, the miasma barrier suddenly lifts itself, making him fly straight through it, passing out of the in-between again and into Tartarus, where he finds himself in the Demon King's throne room. And without a single care for the various dukes in the room, the two duchesses, or even the two demon lords, Tar immediately flies straight past them to end up right at the Demon King as he physically grabs and pulls on his hair, to the man's absolute shock along with all of the demons in the room. Please help her. She's dying. Tar shouts, his voice echoing throughout the room in a panic. Then the Demon King's eyes flare red, a flurry of emotion passing through them so quickly that Tar barely manages to catch the absolute rage, hatred, and fear in them before a powerful bubble of blood spreads out from him, filling as far as Tar can see with the Demon King's blood domain. And within that domain, everything begins to shake. The demons and even the demon lords in the throne room all drop to one knee without a word, each trembling in fear, leaving the Demon King to rise to his feet, the ground beneath him cracking as flakes of crimson blood fly out of his eyes like flames before vanishing again after getting a few inches away from his face. Take me to her now, the Demon King declares, his voice echoing throughout the throne room with a sense of power that urges Tar to immediately enter the in-between after handing the Demon King a piece of his fur to use for tracking. And after mere seconds, he appears back at the battlefield hundreds of meters above the ground, where he looks down to see the lunatic attacking Scarlet and throwing her battered and broken body like a ragdoll. All of his beloved best friend's armor is shattered, leaving naught but the unbreakable under armor remaining as her own bones stick out of her skin all across her body. Meanwhile her very eyes are crying blood, blood is leaking from every single pore in her body, and he even senses wounds all across her reality through his bond now that he's close enough. But before he can move down there in what would be a futile attempt to help her, a loud roar louder than anything he has ever heard before echoes throughout what Tar is sure to be the entire planet. And as if reacting to the roar, the entire world shakes around them. The air, the sky, the ground, everything. And it's not just the world. Crimson lightning begins to fall from the sky like it was reacting to something, the miasmic barriers around the area shatter within an instant, and rain of blood begins to pour down all around them. All around the entire world if Tar had to guess. Then the roar is followed by an equally loud howl, and thousands of howls in return. And within a single instant, the bubble of the blood domain reaches them and the Demon King appears in his full glory floating in the air with rivulets of blood pulsating all around him in his quadrupedal beast form, floating at over 5 meters in height and 7 meters in length. The king has crimson eyes trailing along red light at an angle following the angle of his eyes that is reflected in the blood rain, sleek black fur with strips of red as crimson as fresh blood running across it, a tail spanning 2/5 of his length that's constantly shifting from a smooth tail to one made of crimson blood with a hint of silver, to one made entirely of a blackish red blood metal. Meanwhile, he's snarling while looking down at the undead kitsune, who has completely stopped paying attention to Scarlet to fully focus his insane attention on the enraged king. The very air around the demon king starts to waver as the blood filling the battlefield floats up into the air, joining a massive ocean of blood quickly forming above them, blocking out the crimson lightning flashing in the skies. Even as the bolts strike the blood ocean itself, occasionally lighting it up with crimson light. Then the beast of the apocalypse's voice echoes throughout the entire world as hundreds of blood lycans begin to appear, charging through the battlefield from all directions until they circle the undead kitsune as a show of force completely unnecessary before the beast's power. Kitsugami Shiro. Tar finds himself in awe for a faint second as the undead kitsune is bound by a blood metal collar around his neck, manacles around his wrists and ankles, and is lifted up into the air, where his arms and legs are stretched outwards as chains of blood metal form in the air to attach themselves to the manacles. You are to face the judgment of the ages for the crime of assaulting a member of the royal family and my granddaughter. The demon king's voice continues echoing throughout the entire planet. And to Tar's both shock and pleasure, he finds the kitsune's body separating apart into 6 unbleeding segments as all of the power slowly fades away in him, the demon king somehow stealing his very reality energy and draining it from his blood, from his life force. All the way till he is no longer even a level 1 demon. Demons of Tartarus, repeat the judgment of the ages for all those near and far to hear, so that no one repeats this offense. Tar's eyes widen as he hears a loud roar of voices answering, as if every last being on the planet capable of doing so was shouting at the top of their lungs the exact same words. As according to the laws of Tartarus, any who unlawfully assault a member of the royal family should their crest be on display will face the judgment of the ages. They shall have their body separated into 6 parts from their extremities to their core, and finally their head, their power absolved by the demon king both physical and magical, and they shall be left to feel eternal torment until the day of Tartarus's end with naught but their ability to feel pain intact. But to Tar's surprise, the undead kitsune just laughs throughout all of this until he can no longer laugh anymore, his lips perfectly seamed together by themselves as the blood lycans all around them continue kneeling, their glares directed at the undead kitsune. Then they continue speaking. Furthermore, all family members of the assaulter shall be executed should there be any, and have their holdings claimed by the crown to be distributed to the royal family member who was assaulted. This punishment will thereby be increased in severity for the next one to earn the judgment of the ages, as according to the demon king's will. For those who break the laws of Tartarus deserve no easy death, nor do those who fail to learn from their predecessors. Tar's eyes widen in shock at that, not having known the laws himself, only for his gaze to return to Scarlet as he rushes down to her, only to find her wounds having already healed. The demon king having apparently healed her long before dealing out the undead kitsune's punishment, despite not having approached her himself. So Tar looks up again, just to find 6 different demon dukes and duchesses appearing before the demon king, each holding a chest. And without a moment of hesitation, the dukes and duchesses each place 1 segment of the undead kitsune, whose eyes still have laughter in them despite the absolute pain he must be in right now, into each chest. Then Tar turns back to the unconscious Scarlet again, only to find both the demon king and the blood lord kneeling next to her already, both in their lycan forms. But before the other demons leave, every last demon in the world shouts one last thing, making a chill run down Tar's spine, despite him being in an artificial body. One that he feels is beginning to lose consciousness. The dawn of the end shall rise only after the blood no longer stains the battlefield, for the royal family are all there is. The bringers of hope, and the calamities of the kingdom's enemies. And right when the last word is stated, everything goes black in Tar's vision, the Fey Prince falling down to the ground himself in a heap. Arcas feels pain in his chest for the first time in over 1,000 years as he checks over his granddaughter, who by all accounts should be healthy again after his healing. But isn't. He continues searching over her for wounds, the girl herself being in a coma now as he does so, only to hear his son's voice echo through the battlefield, "Father, what's wrong with her?" Arcas doesn't answer for several seconds, instead just searching for the answer himself. And after a time unknown to Arcas has passed by, he finally finds the source of the problem, only to grimace when he realizes that it's not something he can fix. He turns to his son, finding a worried look on the boy's face as Arcas says, "There are two problems, neither of which I can fix." Leonidas's body stiffens up, his eyes widening in horror. But Arcas just continues while turning to face his granddaughter, who by now has been lifted so that her head is lying on Leonidas's lap. The first is that her reality itself has been damaged pretty badly. Not enough to permanently harm or scar her, but enough to keep her to be unlikely to regain consciousness for at least a few weeks. He turns back to his son again. But the main problem is that she seems to have tried forcing her way past the system to use a weaker version of my blood transcendence skill. Leonidas immediately turns his head to look at his daughter at that, a look of horror on his face. Since she tried doing it past the restrictions of the system, she didn't fully succeed, Arcas continues, a sad look reaching his face as he gazes at his granddaughter. But she didn't entirely fail either. So her body is currently partway separated by each individual atom. He pauses, feeling his throat choking up slightly. And it won't be possible for anyone but her to fix it. Silence fills the battlefield as all of the remaining blood lichens around them, each at least of the Marquis or Marchioness ranking, stand perfectly still, with the exception of the one that had walked up to hold his granddaughter's Fae who had collapsed. She will have to fight against her own DNA if she wants to survive, Arcas continues, feeling a tear beginning to build up on the corner of his eye. And to make matters worse, she also seemed to have been lost to her sin when it happened. Leonidas stiffens up at that. So it's entirely possible, Arcas starts, but doesn't finish out loud. It's entirely possible she could be too deeply under the effects of her sin to fight her way through this. Before the tear building up in Arcas' eye finishes building, he waves his hand, making a bubble of blood surround and envelop them, following which he, Leonidas, and his granddaughter end up in Arcas' bedroom at the castle. Meanwhile, his granddaughter's Fae appears on his bed next to Scarlet, who is already lying there, Leonidas having not wasted a single second of time getting her to it. Time passes slowly as Arcas and Leonidas kneel on the sides of the bed, holding Scarlet's hands. But the girl's eyes never open. Meanwhile, Arcas feels tears silently flowing down his cheeks, and sees the same happening to his son. After nearly an hour of silence though, Arcas wipes his tears and stands up, barely managing to let go of his granddaughter's hand as his son looks up at him. But Arcas just answers, "I need to make a call." The front lines on Earth. Amelia frowns as she stands off against a few Class B demons who had come out of their way to attack her while she was dealing with the army beneath them, the four of them including herself floating high above the ground. But she just lets out a sigh and snaps her fingers once, taking away every last sense the three nobles have, leaving them struggling to remain flying. Then she snaps her fingers again, making wound after wound appear on their body. Every last wound they had ever taken within the last decade. And all three nobles fail to retain their flight after that, shouting in pain from the multitude of wounds that make their own faces unidentifiable to anyone who may have known them. The White Knight raises her hand, still frowning, only to pause when she feels a vibration from the communicator stone she keeps in her pocket connected to her mate's stone. So she quickly finishes off the three nobles by using a wave of lesser erasure, erasing their life energy instead of themselves, and rushes off back to a private location where she takes out the stone. But unlike what she expected, when she answers the call, her mate's voice isn't the one that comes through the stone. "Scarlet is in a coma, so I will permit you to come to Tartarus and bring whoever you believe Scarlet would wish to have by her side," the Demon King's voice echoes out around her, sending a chill down her spine. The contents of what he says quickly hits her though, sending away any thoughts about why and how he's contacting her through her communication stone with her mate. "Enter through the gate in the Arctic. I will have Damien let you all pass." Amelia's eyes widen in both terror and dread as she immediately vanishes from her location in search of everyone that she knows Scarlet is close to, including Arya, the Sylvesters, and her former teammates. And without even giving them the chance to say anything, she simply snatches each one of them up without a word and continues on to the next until she finally heads straight to the Arctic. She only finally pauses to give them a very short explanation when she reaches the Arctic and finds demons there to guide them to the gate, absolutely terrifying each one of them in the process. But no one says a word in response, despite their obvious fear and worry. Please be okay. Cynthia walks through the gate in a hurry after changing out her Magitech armor in an instant and leaving behind her terminal and other modern technology as her mind goes wild considering every last possible event that could have happened to Scarlet. But she doesn't get long to think about it before the group of people close to Scarlet, including herself, are all enveloped by a large sphere of blood. And just seconds later, the sphere of blood vanishes, revealing a large castle courtyard around them. Unlike the rest of them, Amelia doesn't gape at the castle or the incredibly powerful demons around them. She simply begins flying through the air while dragging everyone else including Cynthia with her before passing through a balcony window and entering a bedroom where they all find Scarlet lying unconscious on a bed surrounded by two men. Both of whom are blood Lycans. Demon King, Sovereign of Blood, Blood Immortal, Beast of the Apocalypse, Blood Lycan level 2500, Blood Lord, Blood Calamity, Blood Lycan level 1946, Cynthia barely wastes a second identifying them before she rushes to the bed, uncaring of the results despite the chill that runs down her spine at the sight of them. Because she has more important problems right now than the identity of the two in front of her. And the others are all the same as they rush up to the bed. What happened? Amelia immediately asks as Cynthia kneels down next to the bed, her gaze not leaving her adopted daughter, who looks incredibly tense despite lying on a bed fit for royalty. After a second, the Demon King, whose gaze hasn't left Scarlet since they came in, answers, a noble who had lost himself to his sin attacked her, ripped apart her reality to a recoverable extent, and was punished. But not before Scarlet partially lost herself to her own sin and tried to forcefully turn her body into blood. And the entire time he speaks, Cynthia can feel the anger behind his words, despite them lacking any form of emotion while also feeling distant. Like he's not addressing them or even considering them as people, but merely objects he needed to bring here on his granddaughter's behalf. Cynthia doesn't care about that though. She just reaches for and puts a hand on Scarlet's waist, unconsciously staying away from her hand due to the Demon King holding it. I can't do anything more to treat her now, the Demon King continues, his voice still sending shivers down Cynthia's spine even when she's not paying attention to him beyond the contents of his words. The only one who can do anything for her is herself. Silence fills the room as everyone surrounds the bed, and after a few seconds, Cynthia's eyes widen slightly and she whispers, "She moved." Everyone tenses up as they noticed it as well, but Scarlet returns to being completely still again and stiff as a board. Eventually, Cynthia hears Scarlet's cousin Arya quietly ask, Did that movement mean anything?" Cynthia finally turns her gaze away from Scarlet, and to her surprise, so does the Demon King and Blood Lord. Then the Demon King lightly nods his head and turns his gaze back to Scarlet as he says, "It looks like it was the right decision to bring you all here. She started fighting against her sin, hasn't she?" Amelia asks, making Cynthia feel slightly relieved the moment she sees the Demon King nodding his head in answer, albeit stiffly. Everyone returns to silence once more, their gazes locked on the unconscious girl lying on the bed. Time passes, and seconds quickly turn into hours, but Scarlet never moves again. Eventually, the group is interrupted when a maid walks in, filling the room with her aura of power that easily makes her the third most powerful person in the room, even stronger than White. And since so much time had passed, Cynthia has finally managed to recover enough to speak and think clearly now, so she turns to look at the maid fully, finding a kitsune standing at the entrance with her hands held together in front of her as she bows towards the Demon King. Raiden Akuma Kitsune, level 1793. The Demon King's terrifying head made that Scarlet mentioned. "Your Majesty, you are needed to intervene in a dispute between dukes," the maid declares, staying bowed down for a second before she stands up straight again. "We understand your need to stay with the princess, and therefore I would like to stay behind with her as added protection while you are away should you choose to leave." Cynthia feels surprised at the sight of the maid trying to tell the Demon King offhandedly what to do, even if she isn't directly stating it. And what's even more surprising is that the Demon King actually vanishes from the room for an instant, following which a scream echoes from somewhere else in the castle, and he reappears again at the bed, saying, "It's been dealt with." The maid blinks, showing a vague amount of surprise before she bows again and walks to the side of the room where she goes silent. Cynthia turns to glance at Alan, but her husband doesn't show any interest in what had just happened. Instead, Cynthia finds him in a glaring match with Leonidas, with the two seemingly fighting over holding Scarlett's hand and eventually settling on one holding her hand and the other her forearm. How long have they been doing that? She pauses at that thought for a second before looking at the others and finding Scarlett's friends having fallen asleep at some point with the exception of Belle and Arthur, the kids lying on the ground. At least, until the maid takes it upon herself to pick them up with clouds filled with red and blue energy, says, "I will be showing them to a guest bedroom," and leaves the room in an instant with them before anyone can say anything. Silence once again fills the room, only to shatter when the Demon King slowly says, speaking to Cynthia, Amelia, and everyone else who had come including the ones who fell asleep, "This is a one-time event. Should you choose to come to Tartarus again in the future, I will not be so accommodating. You will be captured and held as a forceful guest in a palace far away in the Bloody Duchy, to keep you out of the war." He turns to look at Amelia, seemingly not believing anyone else in the room to be any sort of power capable of representing their group as he finishes, "Is that clear?" Amelia nods without complaint and everyone returns their attention to Scarlett. "Please get better soon." Darkness. All around me, that's all I can see. Meanwhile, voices continues echoing through my head almost as loud as my own thoughts. Thoughts that feel cloudy for some reason. Then there's the pain. Extreme pain that seems to be bypassing my pain diffusion skill as I float in the darkness of whatever void I'm in. Pain that keeps me from thinking about anything beyond the pain and voices. Pride. Regain your pride. There is nothing more important than your pride. You deserve death without your pride. The voices continue nearly endlessly, and over time I almost give in to them as they start to overload the pain to the point that I can think a little. Even if I can't really hear my own thoughts. Because what's the point? I've never attached all that much importance to my own life. Never had much attachment to reality itself, if I'm being honest. It's one of the reasons I would always just accept my death when it seemed like it was coming. The world itself is empty to me. There isn't much in it that I care about on a real level. After all, what's the point of everything? Do action A so that you can do action B to do C. There just isn't an end goal to it. Unless you count death, that is. And then what would the point of that be? Work all your life, maybe achieve some goals you set, and die. Then again, I have always enjoyed achieving goals I've set for myself. That feeling of satisfaction whenever you achieve your goal. Even if it's a rather brief feeling, it's a good one. Probably one of the reasons I like fighting so much as a guardian. To get that quick satisfaction of leveling up. Of growing stronger. But even then, what's the point? The voices begin to grow louder as I feel myself slipping away slightly to them. I've always been great at everything I've tried. A rather stifling thought, and one that would probably have a lot of people call me arrogant or something. The cold of the void slowly turns warm as I feel the pain slowly fading as the voices grow louder. And I can't help but notice just how comfortable that warmth is. Not to mention the voices. Leave the restoration of honor to me. Let us restore your pride. The pride is all that matters. If I could just leave everything to someone else and sleep. Sleep. I feel my eyes waning close ever so slowly. But then I hear a voice, making me blink for a moment before I realize it's more than one voices. Alan, Cynthia, Belle, Arthur, Arya, the others from the team. Even Gramps, Leonidas, and Amelia. I hear all of their voices as they talk from somewhere outside of the void I'm in. Huh. How long have they been there? I finally begin to notice the odd cool spots on my body. Spots that begin to wake me up a little from the comfortable warmth. Huh. What was I just about to do? I tried to move slightly from the discomfort, only to find that it just makes things even more discomfortable as the pain returns with a vengeance and the voices start going crazy from my snapping out of whatever was happening. Well, that's annoying. What's up with this pain though? How is it that it's completely ignoring pain diffusion? Wait. Why can't I feel any of my skills? It's like they're all gone. Actually, more importantly, wasn't I fighting a lunatic? I'm pretty sure I was. So why am I here in this strange void of nothingness? I also can't move now that I think about it. Why am I only slowly starting to realize all this now? Silence answers me. Excluding the voices in my head. Didn't really expect an answer, but still sad nonetheless to not get one. Did Gramps finally arrive and save me from the lunatic? That's the only thing that would make sense. Unless the lunatic killed me, but that wouldn't explain everyone's voices. Also wouldn't explain why I'd hear everyone I care about from Earth alongside Gramps and Leonidas. Pretty sure they'd be at each other's throats in seconds if they saw each other. Or rather, Gramps would have them imprisoned forever since there's no way they'd even be able to reach his throat. Just what happened? The voices continue beating at my mind, none of whom sound happy. Some of them even sound like they're trying to tempt me into letting the sin take over. Or rather, most seem to be doing that. Yeah, no thank you. If there's one thing I hate more than most other things, it's losing control. Well, that and betrayal. I hate betrayal too. Oh, wait, I just remembered. What were those notifications I heard before everything went dark? I tried to let them play, but nothing happens. No notifications greet me. Maybe I can't access the system while in this void? That's rather annoying. I try to frown, only to remember that it hurts rather badly to move and instead go still again. Then I remember what happened right before I went unconscious, and I do the same thing I did then. I search inside of myself using whatever power I got then, finding that I can still do that unlike my skills. And what I find gives me pause. This is not what my blood and DNA looked like the last time I saw. Now they just look cracked? Fractured? Most of my DNA isn't even connected to each other anymore, with the remaining bits only a little connected but with fractures running through the connecting points. And even the ones that aren't connected look like they're wrong somehow. But I can't figure out what's wrong. I try very hard to hold myself back from frowning. Just what's going on anyways? Did I screw something up before? When I did whatever it was that I tried doing? Sleep. And I wish those voices would shut up. Who knows how long passes as I'm left listening to the sounds of the voices in the darkness while feeling nothing but pain. And over time, I think I even managed to get used to the pain. Which was rather unexpected. I also hear voices every now and then, but they aren't very clear, nor are they loud. So I can't make out what they're saying. Eventually, I grow bored enough to focus on my fractured DNA, something I suspect is probably the reason for me being here. Wherever here is. Might even be in my own head for all I know. Not like I know what my head looks like. My thoughts pause as the voices shift for a moment, then vanish, leaving me in sweet silence. Until I feel images flashing through my mind. Images of the past that have me clenching my fist and feeling my eyes tighten slightly despite the pain. Because the images are of a baby girl with gray eyes being held by the white knight of humanity as she crosses through a Class V fracture. Of the blood calamity chasing after her while shouting. And of Amelia quickly hiding the baby somewhere while nullifying all senses of her and then returning to the blood calamity. Then the images show me the sight of the white knight of humanity and the blood calamity fighting, each using non-lethal attacks with the blood calamity clearly holding back to not hurt the white knight. All the way till the white knight uses reverse healing on the man, making thousands of wounds open up on his body at once, knocking him down to his knees before he eventually collapses. Something she never would have been able to do if he wasn't holding back. Amelia, the man grunts, barely managing to raise his head to look at her. Then he manages to utter one last word before falling unconscious. Why? Amelia starts crying after that as she quickly rushes to the fracture core and shatters it, sending her mate back to Tartarus. And immediately after she rushes over to where she left the baby and brings her with her, disappearing into the night with the baby. With me. How did the voices do that? Are they really not just voices? As if the first scene wasn't enough, more images begin to play out in my mind. First that of Amelia bringing me to Alan and his mixture of fear, confusion, and pleasant surprise at her offer, then Leonidas's return to Tartarus and his explanation to Gramps about how he sent me to Earth, so as to not make his father hate Amelia any more than he already does. And it just continues showing me scenes from the past. Eventually, I feel tears rolling down my cheek as the voices of my family and friends come to a halt and I feel more cold spots appearing, including a few on my faces as someone most likely wipes my tears for me. Which makes me pretty sure I'm just in my mind right now, unable to move or open my eyes. The scene shows me scenes from when the demons first invaded Earth, when Earth had its first guardians, and then it moves on to showing me scenes from my childhood. Mostly ones that stoke my pride. Over time, I grit my teeth and try as hard as I can to tell the voices and images to shut up and go away. But they continue coming. And the only solace I manage to find is searching within myself as I try to study the fractured DNA, hoping against hope that I might be able to find a way to fix it and get myself out of here. The Demon King's Castle. Leonidas feels cold as he holds his daughter's hand, unsure of anything anymore. Unsure if he's made the right decisions in his life, the wrong ones, or if he should have kept Scarlet close to him from the start. If letting her go back to Earth was a bad idea or a good idea. No matter what, he finds himself questioning every decision he's ever made. And the man calling himself Scarlet's father kneeling next to him by Scarlet's bed isn't helping. But Leonidas chooses to maturely ignore the man as if he didn't exist. Then tears begin to fall down Scarlet's face and she shifts as if in discomfort, and both Alan and Leonidas immediately reach to wipe her tears, only for their hands to collide inches from her face, making them glare at each other for a second. But they both return their attention to Scarlet, who is more important than their squabble. Only to find that Amelia had already wiped her tears, the woman having taken Arca's spot on the other side of the bed while he was away for a brief period of time to deal with his work again. Probably to be back again within a few minutes, when he'll be mad at her taking his spot. The room is absolutely silent during all of this, with the only noise being that of the demons moving around the castle. Meanwhile, Leonidas, Amelia, Alan, and Cynthia all stay on Scarlet's side. And Belle and Arthur, two of Scarlet's oldest friends who Leonidas actually doesn't mind, lie sleeping while leaning up against the end of the bed, their shoulders up against each other and their heads too. Eventually Amelia speaks, her voice quiet as she says, "We're going to have to tell the people on Earth." Leonidas ignores her since it doesn't matter to him what they do about the humans, but Alan and Cynthia immediately turn to look at her with shock on their faces. If Scarlet vanishes for a long period of time, they're going to question what's happening, Amelia says, her voice little more than a whisper as she stares at her daughter's face, caressing Scarlet's cheek with her hand. They'll wonder if their new princess abandoned them soon after being labeled as their princess. She was only supposed to be here for a week after all. Her words make Alan and Cynthia grow sullen, but Amelia doesn't stop speaking. "We'll have to do this carefully, for Scarlet's sake." Eventually Alan and Cynthia nod their heads. Meanwhile Leonidas continues ignoring them, focusing entirely on his daughter as she occasionally shifts with discomfort. "Please wake up soon, sweetie." All around the world, every single TV screen, promotional billboard, and any other kind of video screen changes from whatever they were previously showing to instead show live footage from within Purple's tower. And standing at the center of the tower is the White Knight of Humanity, causing every human on Earth near a screen to pause in whatever they were doing. "Greetings, citizens of the Republic. As you all know, I am the White Knight of Humanity, Amelia Esker, and I have an important message for you today," White declares, drawing silence from all around the world. "Your Princess of Humanity, my daughter, Scarlet Art Esker de Arcaren, has been put into a coma, and it is uncertain when she will wake up." The silence draws on for a single second, before chaos erupts all around the world. Shouts echoing throughout the streets, people in their rooms falling into a silent stupor from shock, and other people dropping whatever they were holding at the dramatic change that had just underwent the entire Republic at this news. Then the screen changes to show a recording of the apex predator's sleeping face as she lies down on a king-sized canopy bed, unmoving except for an occasional shift of discomfort with pain visible on her face. And the sight of this screen immediately silences the shouting in the streets. Meanwhile, the other Knights of Humanity, and various notable and important people from the Republic share very different reactions. The bloody Valkyrie grimaces, clenching her fists at the sight of the one girl on Earth who she believed to be her equal lying in a coma. Golden Rider frowns, disliking the idea of a girl only 20 years of age fighting in the war and being the focal point of both sides, not believing someone that young should hold a responsibility so great. That they shouldn't have to. And now feeling like his thoughts were confirmed in that regard. Jacob R. Ashton, the chairman of the Republic's government, frowns as he takes in the implications of this, only briefly noting the extravagant surroundings of the bed and the faint signs that the recording was taken not by human technology but by magic. Because he knows that this could either make or break morale amongst the humans. Something he knows White doesn't particularly care about and is only doing this to help Scarlet, even if she knows of the consequences of her actions. And Isaac Knight just turns away from the TV screen, refocusing on his book again without any care for what he had just seen beyond a mild disappointment. But know this, she is fighting, White's voice continues to echo through the entire world. And she will come back to us. Much stronger than before, if her past is anything to go by. These words start another wave throughout the world. But unlike the first wave, this one consists mostly of people asking what happened, whether she'll be alright, and how it happened. White answers everyone almost immediately. The princess got injured while she was fighting with a noble demon all on her own, with no way to receive support until it was already too late. But before that, she managed to hold her own against a noble almost at the count rank until then, fighting against the demon with all her heart and her own life on the line. Whispers start to spread through the people from those feeling awed at an achievement like that. And the ones who were questioning the idea of the apex predator growing stronger from this realized that she truly will with achievements like that. If she wakes up. It doesn't take long before forum threads, chat groups, live streams, and even news begin to discuss the incident with abandon, wishing Scarlet luck and giving her all their hope. Hope that the Princess of Humanity will wake up soon and save the humans. Purple's Tower. Amelia lets out a sigh of relief after seeing the reactions of the people and ending the livestream. Then she turns to Purple and nods her head, getting a brief nod back before the woman returns to her place of mediation at the center of her tower. Good thing Purple doesn't seem to mind me unlike the other knights, even if she doesn't like some of my actions. Otherwise I wouldn't have been able to get her to help me do that. The White Knight turns around and vanishes before reappearing next to the gate in the Arctic, where she then gets permission to pass through once more, draining the gate significantly in the process. Not that Amelia particularly cares. She soon finds herself back in Scarlet's room within the Demon King's castle, the only room she's allowed to be in. And just seconds later, she hears the Demon King's voice echoing in her head, "You will only be allowed to pass through the gate back and forth once more after this. I will not let you run down the reality energy in the gate to let you fight on Earth. If you wish to stay with Scarlet, do so. But you will not be coming back more than one more time if you leave Tartarus again." Amelia grimaces at that and nods her head, quickly deciding that she'll stay for a week, and if Scarlet doesn't wake up by then, she'll leave and return to the war. Then she'll come back half a year later, to check on her all while getting updates from Leonidas on her condition. She turns to the head maid standing in the corner of the room and says, "The magical camera was appreciated." The maid nods her head, seemingly deciding not to speak to Amelia or correct her on the correct term for the magical item. Amelia focuses on her daughter again, finding Ellen, Cynthia, Arthur, and Belle still at her side. Meanwhile, the girl herself is still shifting with obvious pain and discomfort. "Wake up soon, okay, sweetheart?" A seemingly endless amount of time passes, and throughout it I can't help but feel my mind slipping a few times, almost losing to the whispers and memories that had begun to repeat themselves at some point. But I always manage to pull myself back out. And over time, as I focus all of my attention on fixing the issues in my DNA that I have no idea how to fix, the pain does slowly fade a bit, and the memories and voices quiet a little as well. Ever since I figured out a little about what I need to do by accident. When I accidentally broke the fractured areas, separating my DNA further. An action that showed me how wrong my original prospective solution was. That I should somehow bring my DNA back together. What I really need to do is separate the fractured areas and finish the process I had likely started. So over who knows how long, ever since doing that and continuing doing that, splitting DNA strand after DNA strand, my pain has relieved a bit and the voices quieted. But the process is not short, leading me into an endless pattern of look at fractured DNA strand, lightly poke at the fractured part with whatever mental magic or whatever I'm using to poke at it with, and eventually cleanly break the DNA from each other. Then I move on to the next strand and repeat the process. With who knows how many strands, even if it's only a small minority of them that need fixing. Eventually, I completely lose track of time. To the point that I can't tell if I've been doing this for months or if I've been doing it for years. What I do know is that I've been doing this for a long time. Find fracture, poke at fracture, break fracture, find new fracture. The process just repeats endlessly. The headquarters on Earth. 3 months after she entered the coma. James McCall, the General of Humanity's military, grimaces once more as he looks at the map in front of him. One of the current battle zones with the demons. The map itself is absolutely covered in red areas designating battle zones controlled mostly by the demons, with very few green areas all across the eastern continents. To the point that the front lines of the war have been driven back closer and closer to the west end of the eastern continent. That girl, she really was holding up a lot of the war, even as just a class 4. James shakes his head at that, finding the very idea that a 20-year-old girl could affect the war so heavily, princess or not, ridiculous. A girl that he himself finds infuriating because of the pride she has and holds herself to, even if he knows that it's partially due to her sin of pride. Also a girl he never expected he would miss until now. You're sure about this? James asks his closest aide, Michelle Hardlight, a guardian at Class 4 with corruption magic. The woman nods her head without saying a word, her dark green hair falling over her shoulders a little in the process before she straightens up again. James sighs, turning away from the smaller woman as he tries hard not to put his head in his hands. News that the demons aren't sending the quota of Class V demons they were allowed by the princess's bet and are instead sending fewer than the quota. The only reason I can think of for that is that they're saving reality energy for a stronger demon to pass through. And if that's the case, tell every general to prepare their defenses over the next years, James declares, tightening his hand into a fist while raising his head to look at his aide again. We must prepare for a possible demon lord crossing. Her green eyes widen slightly at that before she nods her head again and turns around to leave the room. But right before she reaches the door, James adds, and please check in with the White Knight on how her daughter is doing. As much as I hate to say it, we need her. The woman turns, nods her head once, and continues out of the room. James focuses on the map again as he sits down on the chair at the long table. Satan is becoming more active as well, and Damien is watching over the Arctic gate the White Knight used to pass through to Tartarus. Presumably to protect it while he is lower on forces. The General of Humanity's military grits his teeth slightly as he thinks about the White Knight's frequent trips she was taking at the start of all of this, just vanishing from Earth without a word. At least until she stopped at random once, probably due to the Demon King not wanting her to drain the gate dry and no longer being able to tolerate it. During her trips, each and every one of them, the demons managed to push further and further across the battle lines under Satan's guidance. Since she wasn't there to deal with the nobles, leaving the already stretched number of class versus amongst the humans to deal with each one of the attacks on their own, with only blue and red able to fight on a battlefield like that. At least Black's been able to infiltrate Demon Isle and start assassinating a good number of their nobles. Silence fills the general's office for several minutes before he leans back in the chair and looks up at the ceiling, feeling utterly defeated in how this war has progressed. But what hurts him the most is that he knows the best way to start turning things around is to get the apex predator back. He didn't realize just how much her plagues helped the warfront until she had left it. Why wouldn't they help? I was just too biased against her to let myself realize it. James clenches his fists so hard his nails drill into his hands, but he doesn't pay attention to that. Because now all he can do is whatever he can while he waits for the princess to return to Earth. Satan steps through the throne room of the castle located in the old capital of the human nation of Japan, now known as Demon Isle. And as he walks, plumes of black flame shoot up from the ground, torching it slightly in the process and making the various nobles around him tense up out of fear. He ignores them though, scowling all the way to the throne where he kneels down in front of it for a few seconds before turning around, having honored the royal family. Then he raises a hand and shoots a ball of black flame straight at the center of the room, making it explode with a loud crackle that makes the nobles in the room flinch. Amongst the types of magics, the types that can damage the soul directly are always the most feared. And even of those magics, hellfire is feared by all as the only directly offensive magic that targets the soul with every attack. Even death magic can only branch into the soul, or reality, of a target as a part of it. Hellfire can directly burn the reality of an individual, causing near irreversible damage lest the injured have a life magic user on hand. And Satan knows this as he uses hellfire to directly terrify the nobles in the hall to attention. The war has been progressing smoothly for the past year and we have made great progress, Satan begins, standing straight at the end of the hall in front of the throne with his arms crossed. But now we have a chance. A chance to break through the front lines. His eyes narrow and a grin stretches across his face while his gaze looks out the window at the blood moon shining outside, glowing with a bright crimson light with small sparks of flames flaring off of it. The demon moon is approaching, he says, feeling excitement at that knowledge. And the demons in the room all grow slightly restless with anticipation of it as well, even with their fear of Satan filling them. Satan returns his gaze back to them and finishes, and with the help of the demon moon, I will directly join the battlefield myself and break past their front lines while you all attack every other fortress they have, spreading your numbers out. Satan's grin grows even wider as he feels the thrill of the approaching battle spreading through him. The thrill of the demon moon's light shining down, empowering the demons under it. A ritual skill cast by the demon king himself centuries ago that magically alters the moon so that once a century, the demon moon's light shall shine, granting the demons a boost of over 50 levels in power while under its light. He may not be able to find any way to pass through the gates himself, but His Majesty will always find a way to assist us. Satan feels proud to be the demon in charge of the war front from Earth's End, and without hesitation, he raises his fist, coating it in hellfire as he shouts, "We shall win this war within the week. We shall return Her Highness to her true home permanently, allowing her to wake up to a peaceful time without war between the races. And we shall prove His Majesty right in choosing us to fight." All of the demons in the throne room along with all of the demons spread across Demon Isle who managed to hear him begin roaring out in excitement, filling the entire island with demon calls, roars, cheers, and all other sorts of noises that terrify any human anywhere near the island. Meanwhile, it immediately has Purple opening her eyes within her tower. But Satan doesn't care, knowing the Purple Knight would likely predict their actions. Because there isn't anything the humans can do to stop them, short of somehow stopping the demon moon from rising. Satan grins, now filled with pride as he thinks about how he might be able to bring the war to an end before the Reaper makes it to Earth. Along with the honor and achievement like that might bring him. But mostly he just wants to fight with the Knights of Humanity, not having been able to take the 3 combat knights and the assassin knight on simultaneously before without the battle turning to their favor. Now it's different. Now I will have His Majesty's light on my side. At the same time, Satan turns to look at the gate located not far from the castle as his mind turns to the comatose princess. "Princess Scarlet, I will make sure not to kill the White Knight or the Blue Knight, but the Red Knight will be brought to heel before I burn his soul to a crisp for daring to suggest you marry a human of all things. And the Black Knight deserves death by fire for his assassination tricks, the pest being a nuisance that I need to get rid of quickly before he festers." Satan clenches his fist slightly, his grin fading to a scowl as the cheers and roars of the demons still echoing throughout the island, their enthusiasm not dying down in the slightest. One other reason Satan wishes to deal with the war as quickly as possible, finishing it before the princess wakes up, is to make sure that she doesn't return to the war where she may get hurt either emotionally or physically. Where she might lose a loved one or kill someone she may regret. War isn't for the faint of heart, even for a demon. And I'm sure His Majesty doesn't want her fighting against her own people. Satan's grin returns with a sadistic gleam to it, the man's thoughts returning to tearing the Red Knight of humanity's reality apart piece by pathetic piece. Because the man is not worthy of his hellfire magic. Spread the news amongst the army. Satan declares, his voice echoing out far away from the castle. The war will truly begin in earnest tomorrow. The roars of the demons climb again in volume, but Satan just narrows his scowl in the direction of the humans. Where the Red Knight is located. The main headquarters of the humans. A bright purple light shines out from within the main meeting hall of the military HQ where the purple Knight of humanity frowns, the light shining from her hands as she shows an image of the vision she had just had to all of the leaders of the military along with the other knights of humanity. A vision of the demon moon rising and of Satan rallying his forces for the war. Of Satan coming personally to this very base. This is bad, the general of the Republic's military states, a grave tone to his voice. And Purple just lightly nods her head, wishing she could go back to her tower. But she can't right now. Not when the Republic is facing its worst threat yet. Even if the people around her are making her skin crawl, due to how close they are in the cramped room. Knights of humanity, a voice echoes into the room before a man Gabriel annoyingly recognizes as the chairman of the Republic appears in a flash of purple light indicating his space magic. I hereby request of you, on behalf of the Terran Republic to engage in direct combat with Satan and rid our world of the Lord of Hellfire's son. The man is no longer using his second persona as a government official and is instead wearing his flaming purple armor, his brown hair now purple with varying different shades in it and his eyes glowing purple as well. A color that bothers Gabrielle just the slightest bit due to her own title matching the jerk's colors. I don't like him. Will you accept my request? Jacob, otherwise known as the Spatial Ripper, asks the 5 knights gathered around the long table in the meeting hall. Why won't he just let me live in my tower in peace? Gabrielle sighs internally at his question, but nods her head after Amelia and will both answer in the affirmative. Meanwhile, Noah just grins, seemingly lost in thought about the upcoming battle with Satan. He really does want to fight Satan, doesn't he? Jacob turns to look at Alexander, the last one who hasn't agreed yet, just to find the man narrowing his eyes at the chairman. Alexander? Jacob asks, sounding slightly trepidatious as he does so. Gabriel focuses on Alexander as well, genuinely curious about what he's going to say. And what he actually says shocks everyone in the room. I think we should consider speaking with Father about this. Silence fills the room for several seconds, no one in it saying a word. Gabriel even notices Amelia's mouth opening and closing like a fish. Then Jacob eventually breaks the silence with a short, agreed, shocking the others even further. Because it's common knowledge that the government and the Knight family doesn't get along at all. Gabriel doesn't particularly blame them though, since the Knights are the most powerful family in the entire planet. Even more powerful with more influence than the government itself. If Isaac Knight actually cared about Earth, that is. As it is, the Knight family patriarch doesn't care about humans or Earth at all, despite his vast influence in society, so he never does anything. Despite the power gap between her and Isaac, Gabriel feels slightly fearful of the man. The only man on Earth to have ever reached Class 3 without help from the system. And if her visions are correct, likely to reach Class 4 without the help of the system within the month. Unlike people in the system who have to pay a toll to the system in the form of some of their mana every time they use a skill, Isaac doesn't have to pay that toll just to use his magic. And his magic isn't restrained in the way theirs is in the form of skills in the first place. He's also spent centuries studying his own magic, uncaring of what's gone on around him in the world. 300 years spent studying destruction and creation magic, till the point that he was capable of countering null magic and beyond that. He himself won't be able to help beyond fighting the class IVs and maybe some of the lowest level nobles, but if we used him to set a trap and used his resources. Gabrielle admits that the idea has merit to it. And out of the corner of her eye, she finds Amelia eventually nodding her head as well. Looks like we're all agreed, Jacob declares after seeing the other knights giving their confirmation as well. He then turns to Alexander and Amelia as he asks, "Do either of you know what the monster might want in return?" Both of the knights shake their heads, indicating that they don't know. Jacob sighs before muttering, he better not ask for too much, but then he shakes his head as well and focuses on the general as he says, "General, please make sure everything is ready. We need to evacuate HQ, lest everyone be killed in the battle merely by proximity." "Yes, Chairman," the general exclaims, giving the man a salute. The chairman then turns back to Alexander and repeats, "Will you help in the battle, Blue Knight of Humanity?" Gabrielle finds herself rather surprised when the Blue Knight actually nods his head without another word, not even so much as asking for compensation. Then she blinks as she notices something. Is it just me, or is his face not as dead-looking as normal? She stares at him for a few seconds before eventually shrugging, deciding that she doesn't care enough about the Blue Knight to try figuring out if it was just her imagination or not. "In that case, let us prepare for the start of the real war with the demons," Spatial Ripper declares, his eyes flaring purple again. And all of the knights nod their heads in agreement as the general returns to the room, having given orders to his men for the evacuation. "I hope I can get back to my tower again soon." Everywhere on the planet, humans proceed to go about their business as usual. Parents shopping, children going to school, newly minted guardians fighting in fractures and going to their guardian universities. But everything comes to a grinding halt when the moon all over the world, one that has been blood red for days now, finally begins to blaze with an eerie black and red flame with droplets of blood seemingly falling off of the tips of the fire. And as if a fire was sparked in every last demon on the planet, black and red flames begin to lightly taste each and every demon's skin without harming them in the slightest. And from those flames, droplets of blood start to fall off of every tiny flame, licking at the air around them, soon covering the ground in any location filled with demons all over the planet with blood. Screams echo from all over the world, but thanks to the planning of the government and the associations, Class 4 guardians stationed all over the planet quickly begin to deal with any demons that make it past the fractures, the barriers no longer responding to the demons and instead letting them pass through. Meanwhile, the demons that had all gathered around the front lines over the past couple days finally let out one synchronous roar before charging straight towards the human guardians who meet them halfway. Lastly, a ball of blazing hellfire enhanced by the black and red flame of the demon moon shoots across the sky over the demons and humans, making a beeline straight towards the headquarters of the Republic. And within less than a minute, the ball of black and red flame stops right above a large fortress spanning several thousand meters in radius. It then turns into an Oni with medium-length crimson hair, glowing crimson eyes, two black horns stretching in a narrow arc, and glowing black and red veins covering his bare torso, armor only being on his lower half, shoulders, and hands. But he's not alone, as above the fortress, three figures can be seen floating in the air, and not a single human aside from them can be sensed from the base itself. Of the three figures, one has ocean blue hair and is floating with various tentacles slowly moving around him, stretching out of his back, through his medieval-styled blue armor. And when his eyes lock onto the Oni floating before them, they narrow, his hands turning into tentacles from his fingers up. Another of the three figures, a man with wild red hair and glowing red eyes, floats several meters away from the first as he grins widely at the Oni with one of his arms holding a helmet to his side. A helmet that he soon raises and puts on over his head, the eye sockets of the helmet soon flaring with a deep crimson light as he summons a black and red sword coated in hellfire to his side. And the last of the three figures standing in the middle of the first two, a woman with long stark white hair without a hint of color, stares at the Oni without any emotion on her face. Meanwhile, white specks of energy appear all around her, simply absorbing anything they come across, be it air, light, blood, or even fire or water from those to her sides as the woman summons a black sword into her hands. One that is made of pure null magic despite its color, matching the black and white medieval armor she has on and the cape blowing in the wind behind her. A single second passes in silence before a large dome of red and black energy, a different shade from the energy and colors of a demon, a darker and more sinister shade, forms all around them and the base, spanning several thousand meters in width. And it only takes a moment for everyone within to feel the sinister energy of the destruction magic filling the dome. One that is blocking a fifth of the demon moon's light. And at the same time, destruction magic can be sensed from those within the dome from every battlefield across Earth, even if the source of the magic isn't powerful enough to badly harm a Class V. The Oni grins and raises his voice. So you brought your little monster to the fight, did you? Maybe I'll be able to capture the disgusting creature this time. Silence fills the space as none of the knights feel any urge to defend the patriarch of the knights, despite two of them being his children. Then Satan frowns as he realizes the man in question isn't within the dome. Coward, he states, his frown soon turning into a scowl. But it doesn't last long, because when his gaze turns back to the Red Knight of humanity, it turns into a bright smile as he declares, "Red Knight, we meet on the battlefield again at last." Then his eyes narrow. "But this time you won't be making it out alive." Black and red flames begin to gush out of the man along with blood sourced from the flames, enhanced by the demon moon whose light still manages to shine through the destruction magic dome. A little bit, the source of the dome not being powerful enough to block most of the light. And in response to the flames, black and red flames gush out of the Red Knight as well, along with a pure white light from the White Knight, and torrents of water from the Blue Knight. Then shadows start to fill the dome from the Black Knight, who is hidden from view at the same time as a bright purple flash that combats against the demon moon's light even more, blocking a third of it while letting the remaining light empower the Oni. Let the true war of the species commence. Satan shouts, his voice echoing out of the dome and all the way through to the battlefields, where his demons are interlocked with the humans. And all across the planet, demons can be heard shouting the very same thing as Satan shouts, with a wave of hellfire directly towards the knights. For the Demon King. For His Majesty. Arcas sits on his throne with an apathetic look on his face as he watches the screen in front of him showing the events going on at the headquarters of the humans' military. As the knights and Satan clash, creating absolute chaos all around them. Black and red fire torching anything in the dome, water rushing to put out the fire and only managing to put out parts of it, white light erasing everything it touches, shadows swallowing whatever they envelop whole, and purple light combating with Arcas' own blood-red demon light. A skill he had created in order to empower his demon forces, imbuing it into the moon itself through a ritual skill. But no matter how much destruction Arcas watches, he can't bring himself to care about it at all. Not even when he sees Satan beginning to slowly push back the knights, even with the humans' monster on their side helping. Meanwhile, various noble demons, all of the duke or duchess rank, kneel around the throne room, not a single one of them willing to move an inch out of fear of the Demon King taking it as a slight and killing them in an instant with a wave of his hand. Because it wouldn't be the first time he's done that in the past year since his granddaughter had entered her coma, and it wouldn't be the last. Silence fills the throne room, with the only sound being that of the battle from the screen, but none of the nobles in the room dare even lift their heads to watch it. And Arcas just ignores them entirely as he apathetically watches the current pseudo-leader of the demon forces on Earth fight with the knights. At this rate, he may very well beat them. Arcas isn't sure how he feels about that. Because it would make things way too easy on him, with his granddaughter still being in her coma and unable to help the humans. And that alone burns at his pride. Time passes and the battle continues, occasionally shifting direction, with the knights pushing back at Satan. But with the power of the demon light shining down from the demon moon backing him, Satan always pulls it back around on them. Meanwhile, Amelia's strongest skill can't touch him due to the astronomical mana price it would cost for her to erase him from existence. But she does manage to erase a concept from existence in some locations within the dome. Something that Arcas notices Satan having missed entirely before the man ends up falling into a location where gravity doesn't exist, giving blue and red the chance to attack him, distracting him from a blow from black. Satan always manages to recover whenever one of these traps is pulled though, entirely thanks to the demon light. Arkaz turns his gaze onto his granddaughter, briefly noting that the demon light is strengthening her as well. Probably because she has far more demon genes now than human genes. And right when he's about to turn back to watch the battle again, he notices her shifting slightly, making him continue watching her with his brows furrowed. The demon light, is it affecting her progress on restoring herself? Arkaz watches his granddaughter as she occasionally shifts around uncomfortably for a bit before returning his gaze to the screen and deciding that the knights and Satan aren't going to be finishing with their battle anytime soon. So he waves his hand, making the screen shift to show the other human bases and frontline war zones all across the continent, where demons are pushing through the human forces with relative ease, only slowed down by the destruction magic used by the monster. It looks like the war might just end while she's unconscious after all. The Demon King feels regret at that thought. But he also knows that this is a good thing in the end, even if his pride is burning at him for it. Even if he knows his granddaughter would be pissed off at him for it. Out of nowhere though, a bright golden white light starts shining from various places all over the war zones across the continent. And Arkaz immediately recognizes those lights as being creation magic. The monster's at it again? The creation magic soon solidifies into clockwork soldiers, each being at least class 1 in strength, many being class 2. And they number in the billions, sending a flood of them straight at the demons all over the world. He really knows how to make a mess of things, but I can't see him interfering anymore after this. It's just not that bastard's style. Arkaz barely knows the man known as Isaac Knight. The only instance he had met him was when Isaac entered Tartarus on a research trip during the very first fracture to appear between the two planets. And at that point, Arkaz was too busy trying to figure out what was going on to pay much attention to the strange anomaly who he couldn't even tell if was human or not thanks to his magic. Eclipse magic is frightening even if he's still only nearing class 4 in power. The Demon King continues watching the battles across Earth for some time before turning his attention to Tartarus again when a duke shakingly raises his head, making Arkaz immediately ask, "What is it?" All of the other dukes and duchesses tense at his words, feeling a shiver of fear rush down their spines. A fear so instinctive that if they weren't all at least 1,000 years old, then they would have run in an instant. "Why, Your Majesty, I have just received news from Damien," the Duke declares. The undead are now marching across the ice, and he wishes to know if he has permission to dash. He does not, Arkaz declares, not even letting the Duke finish. "Tell the Duke that he is to remain standing guard over the gate." The Duke who gave the report shivers in fright from Arkaz's words, but Arkaz returns his attention to the screen again, uncaring of the man's plight as the Duke says, "Why, yes, Your Majesty. Your will be done." Before Arkaz can focus on the battle between Satan and the knights again though, he notices another strange movement coming from Scarlet. Did her lips just quirk upwards ever so slightly? Again when she feels Satan's attention turning towards her as spears of hellfire appear around him. "Amelia Esker, birth mother of the princess, you shall be spared for that status alone," Satan says, a smirk stretching across his face as he sends the hellfire spears towards her, "but you will be punished first." The White Knight creates various spears of white null energy and sends them flying straight at the spears of hellfire in return, but her exhaustion makes her miss some of them, leading to some of the spears of hellfire striking directly at her. She lets out a scream of pain and falls back down to the ground, following which Satan summons a sword of hellfire in his hand and blocks a knife of shadows held by Black. And immediately after that he swipes another blade straight upwards, cutting all the way through a tentacle sent his way by Blue. All while laughing the entire time. Even when Red sends a wave of hellfire directly at him. A wave that does little more than make the man's already red skin glow slightly more red, proving the man's resistance towards hellfire being even greater than Red's. But before Satan can say anything to belittle him, Red appears right in front of him with his blade coming straight down towards Satan's head. Amelia's eyes widen in shock when Satan suddenly glows even brighter with more blood coming out of the black and red flames from the demon moon, and pulls his head back to then slam it back forwards, smashing the sword back with his own horns. Then he moves in a blur and disengages from Black and sends him flying with a kick, grabs Red by the arm and throws him into the flying Black, and ducks down to avoid a tentacle before grabbing that as well and sending Blue flying to join them. But to Amelia's horror, as she tries to climb to her feet, feeling pain all over her body from the hellfire spears that did a number on her, Satan just floats up into the air and creates a massive ball of hellfire above his arms, feeding it with the black and red flames coating his body by the demon moon. And without giving any time to react, he drops both of his arms, sending the massive ball of hellfire down to crash into the three knights in a massive explosion that destroys everything in the dome and even causes cracks to appear on the dome for a second before it shatters entirely. All four of the knights in the dome let out cries of pain. Meanwhile, Amelia senses Purple teleporting several kilometers away to avoid the attack entirely from her original place right outside of the dome. Amelia coughs out a mouthful of blood, finding that the man's fireball purposefully only hit her at partial strength as if trying to spare her any chance of dying. And at the same time, Satan bursts out laughing as the air all around them is filled with black ash and black and red embers floating in the air. Try all you like, your level advantage means nothing against me and the Demon King's power. Satan's voice echoes out through the area. Going to lose. Raiden Akuma stands at the edge of Scarlet's room with her hands held neatly in front of her and her eyes closed, her 9 tails completely stationary behind her, merged so that they appear to be only a single tail as a matter of convenience. And she continues standing in silence as she listens to the ongoing events within the throne room, uncaring about whether or not she might draw Arcas' ire. Because she knows he would never harm her for a matter as simple as eavesdropping. Not when she's been serving as his head maid for years upon years now, and not when her mother is the clan leader of one of the 7 clans. After several seconds of eavesdropping, she frowns ever so slightly, making a perfect mental image of the screen the Demon King is looking at, showing the demon forces finally beginning to push past the clockwork golems made by the monster of the humans. Showing the humans beginning to lose the battle, and therefore the entire war. And showing the knights very nearly defeated, black, blue, and red all lying on the ground struggling to get up while white barely manages to stand with her hand covering her gut, her hair completely unruly and one eye squeezed close from a major burn that runs partially into it. Akuma opens her eyes and glances at Scarlet, feeling a strange emotion running through her mind. One similar to her usual greed, making her want to play with the young girl as if she were her own little sister or child, but still different. A feeling that has her unsure. One she has never felt before. I want to. She takes a step away from the wall closer to the bed before glancing back in the direction of the throne room, briefly noticing the Demon King's attention turning to her. And when she notices his brief curiosity, the man not showing any indication that he rejects her current line of action, she focuses on Scarlet again and steps through the room, still maintaining her perfect posture and mannerisms. Then when she reaches the bed, she plays a screen showing the current events on Earth and says, "Princess Scarlet, humanity will fall today if you do not wake up." Scarlet twitches at that but doesn't show much other reaction. A little half-truth couldn't hurt. Princess Scarlet, your friends may very well be in danger on Earth, as is your mother, Akuma states, telling only a half-truth. But Scarlet clearly doesn't know that as she begins to shift as if in extreme discomfort, the black and red flames dancing across her body and the blood dripping from it growing more active as the flames grow and more blood drips, coating the bed. Then bright light shines from several random points on her body where Akuma suspects the girl is fixing her DNA, most of which being in her extremities. And the lights slowly begin to dim as well. Looks like my job is done. She should now be using her sin to control the demon light. Akuma bows slightly towards the bed, then towards the Demon King, who is smiling in the direction of the room, and then returns back to her corner of the room where she closes her eyes and retakes her original position again. Scarlet. A few moments ago. I focus all of my attention on splitting my DNA, determined to finish it while I still have this boost in power. But out of nowhere, I hear a voice speaking. One that I unconsciously fear from my time with the Kitsune. Princess Scarlet, humanity will fall today if you do not wake up, Akuma says, making me pause for a second in my task at hand. I then continue pushing forwards again with more urgency. I don't know why she's telling me this, but if there's one thing I know about Akuma, it's that she never lies. Or at least, she's never lied to me. Although she has told half-truths. I push myself to separate my DNA as quickly yet still carefully as possible. Then I hear her voice again and freeze in place. Princess, your friends may very well be in danger on Earth, as is your mother, Akuma states, her strictly polite yet ambiguous voice echoing in my mind. And the moment I hear it, I feel something snap, along with the sound of my sin of pride shouting louder than ever before in my mind. Do not let others take what is under your protection. And for the first time ever, I agree with it. A shattering sound echoes in my mind as I feel a wave of power flood me along with a wave of heat to match it. There's also a strange sensation as if my body is getting soaked in some sort of liquid, but I ignore that sensation as I focus on the power and begin shattering the fractured boundaries between strands of DNA back to back at a speed several dozen times faster than before. I don't know what the hell is going on out there, but I will not let them die. Emotions I've never really felt before fill me from head to toe as memories of times I've spent with them, memories I didn't care too much about before but now feel are important, fill my mind. And along with those memories, I feel a burning sense of pride. One driving me to protect all those I consider my pack. My kin. And as if driven by my sin, the power I feel flooding me grows even stronger, finally making me realize what it is. The only thing that is fed this strongly by a demon's sin. Demon light. For the first time since I fell into the coma, I feel my lips quirking up to form a full grin as I push through shattering fracture after fracture between my DNA strands. Time to finish this. I've been asleep for long enough. All around the earth, demons and humans clash amongst each other, slaughtering the other without reservations. Whether through magic, summoned creatures and objects, their bare claws and fists, or any other method they can find, the smell of blood fills the entire world. Demons emerging from fractures, breaking past the barriers and into the cities thanks to their king's demon light, more demons flooding the war zones and breaking past the human front lines, and clashes between Class V demons all over the planet ripping up the terrain around them with abandon. Screams echo from all corners of the world from both guardian and demon alike as blood fills the lands. And amidst the chaos, one demon stands tall, albeit with some exhaustion showing on his face and posture, in the middle of a devastated land whose previous biome is now unidentifiable. Now all that can be seen of the land are random pools of water, scorched earth all around with an occasional black flame still flickering on the ground, random portions of the land seemingly having vanished without a trace, and pools of shadow to accompany the water. All with blood soaking the ground for as far as the eye can see. Meanwhile, 4 of the 5 knights of humanity lie beaten on the ground in various states all over the land, with the 5th having retreated far enough away that all she can do is grimace at the spectacle. Soon enough, Satan's laughter echoes throughout the battle-torn land as the man spreads his arms out with a look of glee on his face and shouts, "This war is over." Then he lowers his gaze again, narrowing it on the Red Knight of Humanity who is currently lying on the ground with the bones in his shoulders and knees shattered with holes running directly through him. How about I start with the filthy little copycat? Satan slowly floats downwards to the ground with a trail of black and red flames still fueled by the demon light silently flowing behind him while dripping blood. And once he reaches the Red Knight of Humanity, he simply reaches down for the man whose glaring face hasn't been weathered at all despite his injuries and grabs him by the neck, lifting him into the air. "All of these years, you were there, taunting me the entire way," Satan says, his voice a mere whisper now as he holds the Red Knight of Humanity in the air by the throat, feeling a rush of glee at the thought that he can finally kill him with but a mere clenching of his fists. "Yet I was never able to come out and deal with you without your little knightly friends around to stop me." A grin stretches across his face. But now? Now's different. The Oni slowly begins to clench his fist, lightly digging his claws into the knight's neck and drawing blood in the process. "Now I have you in my clutches, and you won't be enjoying a slow death." Noah's eyes widen with realization before Satan sends a flood of hellfire straight into the wounds on Noah's neck, making the man let out a bone-chilling scream that has the other knights flinching at the pain filling it. And the scream continues echoing out as Satan's hellfire gradually, in a controlled manner, burns away at the Red Knight of Humanity's body and reality. While Noah is screaming, Satan turns his gaze towards the other knights, stating, "While I'm not allowed to permanently harm or kill the blue or white knights," his gaze locks onto black, "the rest of you are fair play." Then he just continues to burn the red knight gradually from the inside, all while making sure the man stays alive throughout the process. Out of nowhere, the demon moon above them flashes once, then twice, and then a third time. Satan's grin grows wider as he slows down in his act of burning the red knight and shouts, "It's finally time." The time when the demon moon is at its highest. Above them, the demon moon, resting high at the center of the sky, begins to brighten until the crimson glow of the moon fills the entire planet regardless of obstacles blocking it. And along with the light, drops of blood begin to come from the moon at a faster pace, with even more drops forming in the air all over the planet and turning into a rain of blood. The end is nigh, Satan declares, his voice containing more than a little glee in it as he and every other demon on both Tartarus and Earth feel the effects of the demon light growing significantly, if only for this brief period of time while the demon moon is at its highest point. Including the comatose girl lying within the demon king's castle. The knights of humanity all show real fear on their faces, with the exception of Blue, who lacks the ability to feel most of that emotion beyond a small amount, as they gaze up at the demon moon high above, blood raining down all around them. However, Purple's eyes begin to shine with a faint purple light, making her widen them before opening her terminal and quickly contacting someone. Then, just a few minutes later, while Satan is still toying with the red knight of humanity, a loud thunderclap echoes in the area, following which a storm of red lightning starts thundering all around them. Satan raises his head to look at the red lightning before asking the air, "You do understand that you stand no chance against me, much less other class versus monster of humanity? Why bother with this?" Isaac doesn't answer, the man neither being within the vicinity nor caring about the Oni's words. Purple glances back at her terminal and smiles at the words, "I will buy the time you requested, but 1 million credits will be charged to your account after this." Right when the red lightning begins to strike at Satan in order to distract him, a bright flash of red and black light shines out of the Demon King's castle on Tartarus. Out of a single, extravagant bedroom. As the apex predator opens her eyes for the first time in over a year. The last push I need comes in the form of a random jump in power from the demon light, making me assume that the moon just hit its peak. And as soon as I finish snapping the last fracture, my eyes shoot open and I find myself staring at the ceiling for a single second before everything scatters and I find my body separating into nothing but blood. Meanwhile, several dings echo in my head from notifications, but I ignore them all and immediately move out of the room by flying through the air in the form of nothing but glowing red blood. I completely ignore every demon I find as I rush through the air for a while until I find a class 4 fracture and scatter myself into droplets of blood that mix into the blood rain. Then I sneak straight into the class 4 fracture and onto Earth, not even stopping to question how I'm able to pass through without the help of a demon now. After I pass through the fracture, I pause for a moment to take in my surroundings, finding myself to be in a random city on Earth. So I quickly kill all of the demons surrounding me in an instant before rushing off through the air as fast as I can towards the front lines. And as I fly through the air, I finally take a moment to look at my notifications and other system messages since I don't have anything else to do while flying. Although I cut out some of the not important messages, because they just flood my mind with unimportant things. Like leveling common rarity skills and a massive flood of kills. 500 skill points are awarded for surviving breaking past system restraints and forcefully learning the blood manipulation and blood transformation achievement locked skills. Do not do this again. This is your only warning. The price of the achievement locked skills was taken directly from the system, leaving it unnecessary for you to spend skill points on them. System restraints have been reapplied to the user. 300 skill points are awarded for surviving in a fight against a Class V while at Class 4. 200 skill points are awarded for surviving a major wound to your reality. 150 skill points are awarded for slaughtering over 100,000 creatures in a single battle. 1 skill point is awarded for killing a demon, x 2500, capped. Congrats, you have leveled up to level 851. 5 free points have been awarded to you and your stats have been updated. Congrats, you have leveled up to level 986. 5 free points have been awarded to you and your stats have been updated. Skilled Blood of Ruin has leveled up to level 21. Skilled Blood of Ruin has leveled up to level 25. Skilled Pain Diffusion has leveled up to level 27. Skilled Pain Diffusion has leveled up to level 30. Skilled Null Magic Field has leveled up to level 25. Skilled Null Magic Field has leveled up to level 27. Skilled Blood Nullification has leveled up to level 16. Skilled Blood Nullification has leveled up to level 19. Skilled Rain of Blood has leveled up to level 14. Skilled Rain of Blood has leveled up to level 17. Skilled Blood Regeneration has leveled up to level 27. Skilled Blood Regeneration has leveled up to level 30. That is a lot of system messages. And those 2 new skills sound really good just by the name alone. Although I'm pretty sure they're what I've been using to fly through the air, in the form of blood. Which makes me wonder how I'm thinking right now without a physical brain, but I guess I'll just leave that explanation to its magic and leave it at that. I continue letting the notifications flow, only half reading most of them since they're mostly just notifications telling me about requirements being met and requirements that still need to be met to get mythic and title-bearing mythic skills. But since they aren't directly useful for me, I ignore them for now, leaving them on the back burner to check out after this is over as I fly through the air past the ocean. Considering the massive amount of skill points that I have right now, I go ahead and spend all of it before arriving, raising Gradual Corruption Nullification to level 30 using 520 SP, raising Blood Plague to level 30 with 705 SP, Crimson Overdrive to level 30 with another 520 SP, and Bloody Thorns and Bloodthirst to level 30 with another 1410 SP. All totaling to 3,155 SP, leaving me with 495 SP remaining. I'm rather surprised by how many demons in that army were high enough level to actually give me SP, since generally only demons at a certain level below me give me SP. I also didn't realize there was a cap for the amount of SP you can get in a single battle. Never killed that many higher-leveled demons in one fight before after all. After thinking for a moment, I decide to bring both Blood Shadow and Blood Retribution to level 20, spending another 360 SP in the process. Which leaves me with 135 SP remaining. And after another glance at the notifications, specifically one of them, I decide to leave it be and not use the rest right now. Because upgrading a skill will reset it back to level 1, and even a skill of that rarity at level 1 would be worse than the current skill at the maxed level. And I need the skill for this. I continue flying across the ocean until I arrive at the mainland of the eastern continent, feeling exhausted for some reason despite not having a body right now. Probably due to holding this transformation for so long. So after making it back to the mainland, I gather all of the blood making up my form and merge it back together, soon reforming my body as it was before. Albeit with a lot more power after I distribute my free points from all those level ups. Then, after quickly checking my armor and fortunately finding it on my body as it should be, I transform into my quadrupedal beast form and begin charging off through the land while enhancing my hearing to the max, completely uncaring of the very minimal amount of pain I feel from it after dealing with reality-damaging pain. It doesn't take me long to find Satan with my hearing that can now span half an entire continent in range, but what I hear along with it surprises me. Isaac's fighting him? That's unexpected. I immediately begin rushing in that direction, breaking the sound barrier in my charge. As I run though, I can't help but wonder about something. Something that's been bothering me for a while now. Where the heck is Tar? This meeting is now over, King Oberon declares as he and every last one of the princes and princesses of the Fae float in the in-between, in the void, right in front of a large breach where void creatures are starting to make their way out and into the void. But as they are merely the bottom feeders of the void creatures, they avoid the group of royal Fae without hesitation. Tar feels anxious as he awaits the final words his father gives, wanting more than nothing to return to check on the war between the demons and the humans, since the last time he checked, the humans were losing badly. A couple seconds pass as the Fae King looks over the royals before he states, Make sure to inform all of your contracted partners of this news. You are now dismissed. Without any hesitation, Tar immediately returns to Earth where he was before his father called for the Fey Royals. And what he finds is a wasteland in the place of Republic's military headquarters, with the Knights all defeated and Satan fighting to get to the Red Knight, who is being protected by Crimson Lightning. Crimson Lightning that Tar can't figure out the source of. Tar bounces back and forth in the air, wishing he could help somehow. But he knows that if he were to get too close to the battle, even if Satan noticed him before his magic vaporized Tar, all Satan would likely do is send Tar to the demons for his own safety. He wouldn't stop the fighting. Please wake up soon, Scarlet. Ever since she entered her coma, Tar has felt lost. And if it weren't for Amelia asking Tar if he wanted to go with her while waiting for Scarlet to wake up, he probably would have still been at her bedside, lost in his own weakness. Weakness that allowed his contracted partner to get hurt so badly her own soul was almost ripped apart. His own failure to get past the lunatic's barrier and contact the Demon King sooner. Tar continues watching the battle, hoping against hope that something might save the Knights. That something might save the humans before the demons fully win the war. He's already felt his contract with Scarlet weakening over the past year thanks to the reality damage she took, even if it's still holding on and merely needs a bit of her mana given to him willingly to repair. And now he has to sit by and watch as what she's been fighting for a long time now comes crashing down while she herself isn't even capable of helping. Tar feels tears beginning to form in his eyes. Something he didn't even realize was possible. Satan continues striking blow after blow against the Crimson Lightning, gradually pushing the massive force of weaker magic back until it can no longer do anything and simply vanishes, the source apparently deciding to pull back. Then the Oni directs his full undistracted attention to Red as he grabs the Red Knight by the throat and proceeds to burn him alive with his hellfire, keeping him alive in the process. But Tar can tell it won't last long, just by how Red's voice is growing weaker in his screams. Everything around him feels like it's beginning to slow down to a halt as Tar watches the hope of humanity begin to die. Because he knows that if even one of the Knights dies, especially one of the combat-focused ones, humanity will lose any sliver of a chance it had of winning against the demons. The other Knights all try to rush to save him now, despite their own injuries, making it incredibly difficult for any of them to move. Even Tar begins to move towards him in a feeble attempt to stop Satan. But he pauses almost instantly when he feels a faint resonance coming from his bond. Then a loud howl echoes out through the area, stopping everything and everyone in their tracks. Silence fills the area as everyone looks around. Satan even stopped burning the Red Knight in the process, while the other Knights all stopped moving towards him. No one hears anything for several seconds before finally, a sonic boom echoes through the area and a wave of wind along with it as a large beast appears standing in the middle of the devastated land. One that has tears flowing down Tar's face even faster than before. But these tears are happy ones. The beast is 3 meters in height and 4 in length, with black fur streaked in crimson. Meanwhile, red and black lightning arcs across its body, its eyes glowing a blazing red as it lets out a low snarl. As she lets out a low snarl, Satan stares at her in shock along with the other Knights, but Tar just reaches out through their bond now that they're close enough, instantly feeling Scarlet reaffirm their bond by somehow giving him mana without even touching him. That's when he notices a tiny drop of blood leaving his body and returning to Scarlet. The Oni flat out drops the Red Knight of humanity, making him fall down to the ground while letting off red and black smoke. Unconscious, but still alive. Then Satan's face takes a turn as he sighs at the same time that Scarlet deactivates her transformation and returns to her human form, somehow floating up into the air to a point several meters away from Satan at the same elevation. And Satan mutters, "Guess I have no choice." Tar frowns at his words, only for Scarlet to speak, "Did you have fun playing around during my nap?" And Tar can truly feel the anger behind her words. Anger he's never heard from her before. Not at this degree. To Tar's surprise, Satan just looks up into the sky with something akin to resignation, then he looks at Scarlet again and says, "His Majesty suspected something like this might happen." "Oh?" Scarlet utters, clenching and unclenching her claws slightly in the process as if having difficulty controlling her anger. And what did dear old Grandpa say about this? Tar's eyes widen in surprise at Scarlet's usage of the word grandpa instead of her usual gramps. Oh, she's hella pissed. If the princess awakens and arrives before the moon falls and the last drop of blood is shed, she is bound to be a lot stronger than she was before her coma, Satan says as if he were quoting the Demon King. So you give her a test of your own making. And should she pass this test, Satan's eyes narrow. You are to withdraw all forces back for the time being and not strike again until 1 month after the assault. Silence fills the area as shock spreads to every last person in the devastated lands. Even Scarlet shows extreme shock at the order. The silence is eventually broken when Satan states, no longer quoting the Demon King, and I have a test prepared just for you should you wish to challenge it. His eyes narrow. But know this. Should you challenge my test, I will not save you even if you are to die, as is the only way. Scarlet stares at him for several seconds before asking, the test? Satan grins and spreads both of his arms out as he raises his voice, his words echoing all throughout the continent, throughout the war zones. Scarlet art esker de Karen, should you manage to defeat a Class V demon whose exact level is of your own choosing, then the demon forces will withdraw and not attack the humans even if a fracture appears on Earth for the period of 1 month. His grin grows wider and he narrows his eyes. Do you accept? No one says a single word for nearly 10 seconds before, to Tar's and Amelia's horror, and even Satan's own horror, Scarlet opens her mouth and answers, I accept. I find it more than a little amusing to see the horror on Satan's face at my answer, the man obviously not having expected me to actually accept the offer. But then again, I guess that's normal, considering I'm a Class 4 against a Class V. They seem to be underestimating just how much stronger I've gotten though. All of my legendary skills have significantly climbed in level, even if none of the purchased ones are anywhere near max level, unlike the inherent and achievement locked ones. And what matters the most in battle aren't levels or even classes. It's skills. Just that no one, not even the Demon King, ever had powerful enough skills to challenge Class V at Class 4. But no one ever had Apex Predator and an entire lineup of 13 legendary skills at levels as high as I have. Nor did they have a freehand skill like blood manipulation, or an elemental shifting skill like blood transformation. You have, Tar mutters, reminding me that our bond reaffirmed as his conflicting sounding voice echoes in my head. Don't worry, Tar, I'm not being reckless. I know exactly what I'm doing. Just to sate some of his worry, I open my status for him to see. And he immediately freezes and gapes at it when he does. Name, Scarlet Art Esker de Karen. Species, human/blood Lycan hybrid. Magic, blood. Titles. The Apex Predator. Age, 21. Level, 986. SP, 135. Stats. Physical, 2,994. Mental, 2,993. Magical, 2,993. Physical/level, 2. Mental/level, 1. Magical/level, 2. Free points, 0. Mana, 13, 884, 975.95/13,884,975.95. Free points/level, 5. Active skills. Pain diffusion. Skill level, 30. Description. Null magic field. Skill level, 27. Description. Blood of ruin. Skill level, 25. Description. Blood nullification. Skill level, 19. Description. Rain of blood. Skill level, 17. Description. Blood transformation. Skill level, 10. Description. Metallicized blood. Skill level, 30. Description. Blood empowerment. Skill level, 26. Description: Blood Swarm. Skill level, 15. Description: Beast Transformation. Skill level, Static. Description: Metallicized Blood Claws. Skill level, 30. Description: Life Absorption. Skill level, 30. Description: Partial Shift. Skill level, Static. Description: Blood Pull. Skill level, 30. Description: Blood Chains. Skill level, 30. Description: Blood Diffusion. Skill level, 30. Description: Gradual Corruption Nullification. Skill level, 30. Description: Blood Plague. Skill level, 30. Description: Crimson Overdrive. Skill level, 30. Description: Blood Shadow. Skill level, 20. Description: Blood Retribution. Skill level, 20. Description: Blood Armor. Skill level, 10. Description: Blood Manifestation. Skill level, 10. Description: Blood Sacrifice. Skill level, 10. Description: Blood Boil. Skill level, 10. Description: Blood Bank. Skill level, 10. Description: Passive Skills. Blood Regeneration. Skill level, 30. Description: Blood Manipulation. Skill level, 10. Description: Blood Aura. Skill level, Static. Description: Blood Absorption. Skill level, Static. Description: Sanguine Effect. Skill level, Static. Description: Life Sense. Skill level, 30. Description: Apex Predator. Skill level, Static. Description: Bloodthirst. Skill level, 30. Description: Bloody Thorns. Skill level, 30. Description: Also, I unlocked another mythic skill, but this one isn't a title-bearing one. Tar stays frozen for a while as Satan snaps out of his stupor and exclaims, "Are you serious? I won't be assisting you, even if you die." I nod my head in response with a smile, answering rather simply, "I know." Satan grits his teeth with a look of panic on his face, but he doesn't say anything else. Probably because he knows he can't really say anything else. I'm betting he made this challenge thinking I wouldn't accept it since I could actually die from it, leaving me stuck to watch as he finishes off the knights and captures humanity as a whole. But now he probably thinks I'm gonna end up dying here because of a challenge he made. Sorry, but also not sorry. I glance at Amelia before looking at Tar. Then I focus on the sounds of the remaining screams I hear all around the continent, despite the fighting having halted upon Satan's challenge. He deserves more than just being afraid of accidentally leading his own princess to her death. Several awkward seconds pass as Tar begins clinging onto my neck, having landed on my shoulder. But no one says anything during that time. Not even Tar. He just clings onto me like his life depended on it. Poor guy. I stroke his fur, making him tense up for a second before relaxing. Eventually, Satan starts speaking again, albeit through gritted teeth and with what sounds like more than a little difficulty. "What level noble do you wish to fight?" It didn't take me long to do the math, and I'll have an easier time against a demon at level 1086 than I would a demon at level 1001 simply due to Apex Predator giving me a plus 100% stat boost against the level 1086 rather than the plus 50% boost against a level 1001. So with that in mind, I answer with a rather sinister smile, "Give me a demon at least at level 1086. Scarlet." I hear Amelia shout along with Black. Even Purple raises her voice, which is more than a little surprising. Meanwhile, Satan gets a dead look in his eyes. Serves him right. He doesn't even try to convince me otherwise this time as he snaps his fingers, following which several seconds pass in silence. Then a blazing black and red fireball appears over the horizon and quickly arrives, revealing a noble demon I really wasn't expecting. Almost as if he's trying to make things easier for me. Atropa Geldrana Nightshade level 1089. The demon that he reveals is a few levels higher than I stated, but still close enough that I don't care. It's probably because there wasn't a demon exactly at level 1086 within the army or something, so there's no use mentioning it. But the demon in question is actually a summoner demon. I smirk. He's trying to help me out now just to save both his life and my own. Since if it's a summoner, then I can build up bloodthirst stacks. Stacks that are far more powerful now than they were before, thanks to the level being twice the level it was before. With those stacks along with the plus 100% boost from Apex Predator, I could actually match the Class B in stats, albeit only barely. No. I won't let this happen. I hear Amelia shout, only for some sort of muzzle made out of hellfire to appear around her mouth. One that she repeatedly nullifies only for him to reapply it without trouble. I don't stop him from doing it either, since it won't be very fun to fight while she's constantly trying to shout at me despite being too weak right now to do anything. Don't die, Tar mutters, sounding afraid but somehow still certain that I'll win. Because I know he'd be literally tearing at me with tooth and nail until he dragged me away if he thought I'd lose. Don't worry, I'm not gonna lose this fight. Are both fighters ready? Satan states, only for the Nightshade Noble to immediately shake his head and look like he wants to leave. But just seconds later, without Satan even saying anything, his eyes start flashing with a bright red light, the black ghostly creature that looks almost like a black shadow having its sin of pride challenged. Makes sense. My sin of pride would likely go crazy at the mere idea of running from someone at a lower class than me, even if I knew rationally that I'd die if I didn't. Eventually, the shadowy creature lets out a roar, its mouth opening to reveal sharp, black teeth, and Satan declares, then this will be a fight to the death between the Princess of the Demons and the Baroness Atropa Geldrana. He then drops his arm, shouting, begin. Without a hint of hesitation, the two of us rush straight at each other. And the real most difficult battle of my life, not that mockery of a battle against the lunatic, begins in earnest. A battle that will decide the fate of humanity,